Thank you all for your patience. I'm not starting the meeting yet. I'm just saying we have some technical things I see we're trying to troubleshoot over here, and we're going to troubleshoot those technical things first before we get started. Just bear with us a minute. I know we're all logging in. Chris and Mary Joy, are you good down there? You're good now? Okay, great. All right, I'm going to do a quick sound check. I understand before we start the meeting, I'm going to make sure that Ms. Candy Cruz is on the telephone, that we can hear her and she can hear us.
Candy, can you hear?
I can hear you, Ms. Gaiman.
Thank you. We can hear you as well. We're just hearing our conversation about 3 or 4 times as it bounces back and forth through technology. So that's a great. Could I ask at this time for everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to take things a little bit in a slightly different order. We have 2 student representatives here tonight, so I'll let you make your way to the podium. They're going to speak first just so they can get on with their busy spring high school lives. And as they make their way to the podium and get set for their report, I just want to announce that we have all 9 board members in attendance. Ms. Cruz is attending on the telephone, and otherwise we have a full house, and thank you for being here. So we'll turn it over to our student representatives, Matthew and Sema. Sema? I even asked. I'm sorry. Sema? Got it. I apologize. Go ahead, guys. Thanks so much for being here.
Qualified this spring at the Skills USA State Competition in Hershey. Congratulations go out to Shayla Woodleaf Beard, who earned first place in crime scene investigation as part of the criminal justice program. Shayla is now eligible for a competition in Hershey this spring. Good luck, Shayla. And for Scholastic Scrimmage, 2 teams participated in the 20th annual Phillipsburg Academic Competition on Saturday, February 1st at Phillipsburg High School in Phillipsburg, New Jersey. The 2 teams played round-robin style Jeopardy matches against other teams from Eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. The teams were so successful in the morning rounds that they placed in the quarterfinal playoff against each other. Madeline Logmani, Cole Diebel, Matthew Ung, and Lucas Cortino succumbed to the other Southern Lehigh team but walked away with the trophy. The winning Southern Lehigh team of Patrick D'Amico, John Sanders, Avantika Jory, Ella Schleininger continued to win the semifinal match, placing them in the championship match. Southern Lehigh ultimately walked away with the championship trophy against a very competitive JFK Memorial High School, New Jersey team. Congratulations to both Southern Lehigh teams on a very successful weekend.
And then next up is FBLA. Back in December, the FBLA team competed at the Region 28 Leadership Conference at DeSales University. This conference is for all schools with FBLA programs in the Lehigh Valley. The SLHS students competed in many different competitions for various business-related topics. 24 students placed and will be moving on to compete at the state level in Hershey, PA in early April 2025. Congratulations on all the success we wish all students the best of luck for states in April. And now for speech and debate. The speech and debate team is continuing their strong season and competed in multiple tournaments over the past few weeks. With multiple team members receiving top honors, the team just hosted a tournament this past weekend here at Southern Lehigh High School and are preparing for their last few competitions, including the state competition on March 21st and 22nd.
To now congratulate the students in journalism, they placed first place in the PSPA Regional Student Journalism Competition and will be representing Southern Lehigh at Pennsylvania School Press Association State Finals on April 1st. Axel Solber, News Writing. Tessa DeCesare, Feature Writing. Charlie Petrie, Editorial Cartoon. And Morgan Downing, Editorial Writing.
And then now for sports. For boys basketball, they finished their regular season 11-11 and qualified for the District 11 playoffs. The boys compete in the first round of district playoffs on Friday, February 21st, when they took on Sellingsgrove at Blue Mountain. The boys won a nail-biter 50-49 with Michael Fry hitting the game-winning three at the buzzer. The boys are back in action tomorrow night, taking on Pottsville at Blue Mountain in the District 11 semifinals.
Now with girls basketball, they finished the regular season 9-13. Congratulations on the improved season and for representing our school with pride. For the girls cheerleading, they wrapped up their competition season by competing in the UCA National Tournament in Orlando, Florida on February 8th. The girls competed hard and finished 15th in their small group division.
For boys swimming and diving, they closed out the regular season with a 6-5 dual meet record. The team will be competing this Friday at Parkland High School in the District 11 two-way meet in order to qualify for states.
Girls swimming and diving closed out the regular season with a 9-2 dual meet record. The team will be competing this Friday at Parkland High School in the District 11 3A meet in order to qualify for states.
And boys wrestling finished the regular season with a record of 6-13. The boys wrestled hard at districts, but unfortunately no one qualified for regionals. Congratulations to all the boys who were ranked in the state this year.
For girls wrestling, they finished their inaugural season with a record of 1-3. There were so many bright spots this season with more to come in the years to follow. The girls wrestled in regionals this weekend, and Mai Graham and Lucia Kroskin both took third in their respective weight classes and will advance to the state tournament at Hershey, which will take place March 6th through 8th.
And then for rifle, Southern Lehigh Rifle finished second in the championship match tournament for the Nepal. Southern Lehigh took on Emmaus and lost 1,040 to 1,045.5. Special congratulations to Matthew Decavedo and Sophie Hart for earning a spot in the state individual tournament. The team completed their season on February 19th, taking second place in the state behind Emmaus.
The winter track and field teams wrapped up their regular season yesterday at the Christian Marsh Memorial Invitational at the University of Pennsylvania. The girls 4x200 relay team of Chloe Posovic, Evelyn Kurlansik, Malia Best, and Faith Schiffer finished 4th overall and ended the season with the 10th fastest time in the state. Gregory Rubino reset his own school record in the 1,600-meter leg on the distance medley relay. Next weekend, Faith Schiffer and the girls 4x200 relay will compete in the indoor state meet at Penn State.
And then one other thing to add for sports is kind of one idea that I came up with is that I believe all sports should have alternate jerseys, just like football. We've seen how much fun it is with teams switching up things with cool new designs and bold colors. And it also adds excitement for the players and fans. If teams in lacrosse, soccer, field hockey, volleyball, basketball, etc. had alternate jerseys, it would be a fun way to connect with fans and just make every game feel a little more special. To me and many others, it's a great way to stand out and separate us from the crowd in a positive way.
And to point out some upcoming events, February 27th will be the midpoint of the third quarter, while February 28th will be the first winter formal dance hosted by our own student council. March 7th is No School for Students, and March 12th through March 16th is a spring musical Legally Blonde by our own Southern Lehigh cast. April 1st will be the last day of the third quarter, while April 2nd will be the first day of the fourth. April 17th to April 21st will be No School for Students because of spring break.
May 2nd is No School for Students, Act 80 Day. May 9th is Junior and Senior Prom at DeSales. May 5th through 16th is AP testing. Exact schedule will be released closer to the exam testing window. May 12th to the 23rd, Keystone exam testing. And then May 20th to 23rd is senior final exams. May 21st, senior awards assembly. May 26th, No School for Students, Memorial Day. May 27th to 30th, senior week events and graduation practices. May 30th, graduation at Stabler Arena. And then 6/3 to 6/6 is underclassmen final exams, and 6/9 is last day of school for students.
Thank you.
I just want to acknowledge the amount of time you spent getting all that together. So thank you. There's a lot there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are. Oh, go ahead. Does somebody have a? No, I was going to say thank you so much. We know you have busy high school schedules, and way to seize the mic with your own idea. You might have set a precedent with future student announcers there. So look out to the high school. Choose wisely back there. No, thanks so much. You're free to go whenever you like. We really appreciate the information and the work that was put into it, like Mr. Mon said.
Thank you, guys.
You're very welcome. Have a great evening. All right, moving on to visitor comments. I have 3 visitor comments so far, and if for some reason I've missed you, or by the end, if you've signed in and I've missed you, just raise your hand, let me know, we'll take care of it. The first individual I have is Louis Malesio. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your last name. Oh, did I? All right, got one. I didn't get the student, but I got you. All right.
Right on. Hello, everyone. I request for this to be put on the record and into the minutes. Good evening. My name is Louis Malesio. I'm a resident of Center Valley and would love to continue to see this district do great things. I've recently attended training sessions on this topic and wanted to offer up a fresh perspective on the last board meeting, since it could be easy to get passionate on topics and lose sight of some key points that were brought up. During the presentation of the technology budget for laptops at the high school, a board member explained that what was understood and agreed upon as a recommendation was subsequently changed without communication by the superintendent. It was discussed by several board members that this isn't the first time something like this happened. This then evolved into a larger discussion regarding the actions of the superintendent. Along with this lack of communication between the superintendent and the board, another concern discussed was a lack of advanced planning to fill in a vacancy. There was an anticipated vacancy known for months prior to the board being notified. The board was only notified the Friday afternoon before the last meeting that the role was more than likely going to be remote, which we all agree would be the worst option. If given an appropriate amount of time, a suitable teacher would have already been interviewed and ready to fill this position. We see this potential because one board member was able to inadvertently find a potential candidate who was interviewed the day of the board meeting with barely any prior notice. Even if this position wouldn't have been filled, there would have been much more time to entertain other options. A point was made that the president didn't offer up any candidates for the upcoming vacant position. Seconds prior, she was expressing that she knew of many qualified individuals. However, the point which seemed to have been missed was she was not notified in a manner that would have allowed her to reach out and suggest potential candidates that they apply. Seeing as the board wasn't asked to look for candidates, and it was agreed upon by some that the superintendent had a CEO adjacent level of power in regards to staffing, I'm unsure why the universal focus wasn't on addressing the communication gap instead of being critical of fellow board members. The superintendent was previously stated in past board meetings that you're in the business of identifying barriers and working towards eliminating them. Some board members seem to have been more focused on criticizing the president's leadership. These comments seem to be in retaliation to criticism of the superintendent and a distraction to derail the previous points mentioned that are actively and negatively impacting the function of the board and the district. If the board is spending 3 to 4 hours on issues in our district, those hours should be spent wisely and not on biased attacks against fellow board members. You could work on addressing communication between the superintendent and the board. You could establish a full understanding of what the superintendent may or may not do. So if anything is called into question, it's known whether that was a decision he should have made or something that should have been handled differently. Some better uses of time could be educating the public on how potential state and federal budget changes are going to impact our district. There are several thousands of dollars of federal funds listed as expenditures on tonight's agenda. If we lose federal funding due to the large federal cuts that have been happening, is there a contingency plan in place? If there is no contingency plan in place, can you work towards one? This was a lot and hopefully helpful to give a different perspective, but please leave the grudges at the door and focus on working as a team. The children, staff, and fellow board members and their families need your time to be spent properly and respectfully. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person I have for visitor comment is Amy Bauscher.
Good evening. 2 weeks ago, I stood at the podium and asked the board and central administration to recognize the time crunch the district was under when trying to find a certified teacher to fill in for a 12-week leave of absence for one of our high school Spanish teachers. I found it quite frustrating that the board was only informed of this issue at the February 10th meeting because we were already in the 11th hour of a vacancy that the district knew about since October. As SLEA leadership, we had been working extensively with our building principal as he pursued every avenue and exhausted every lead in securing a teacher for our students. He contacted every person who submitted a resume. He reached out to several universities. We reached out to retired Spanish teachers to no avail. We certainly could not have a repeat of last year when our Spanish teachers were tasked with filling the void with zero financial compensation. So just to be clear, that means that they continued to teach their full course load 6 classes, while they also prepared lessons and graded assignments for the other Spanish classes and mentored a substitute who had zero teaching experience. Needless to say, the situation was not ideal for anyone. So in the quest to find a Spanish substitute to complete this year's 12-week stint, Mr. Miller started a dialogue with the Language Learning Network. Although remote learning is certainly not as ideal as having a veteran Spanish teacher in the classroom, it was definitely a much more viable option than not having any teacher. The LLN was staffed with certified and capable instructors. This partnership would have provided our students with synchronous teaching from a certified teacher with advanced placement experience. The teacher would have used our curriculum, created all of the lessons, completed the grading, and offered office hours to our students for additional support. Our students would also have had a substitute in the classroom to help with any tech issues and to be prompted to stay on task. So 2 weeks ago when I spoke, the reassurance was given that if the LLM partnership was the best scenario, the board would reconvene even prior to tonight to approve the contract. When no in-person teacher was found, a special meeting was scheduled to move forward with the contract. So imagine our frustration when the meeting was canceled last Tuesday evening. I'm aware why the meeting was canceled, and to say I'm extremely disappointed is an understatement. I know the LLN accepted the district's revisions to the contract because I was included on those communications. So just to be clear, 23 advanced placement students, 16 honors students, and 73 Spanish 2 students have been sitting in their classroom at the high school with busy work or a study hall and no consistent substitute. And we are now in week 2 of a 12-week absence. So I hope the board will dig deeper into why this contract fell apart, because at this time, this solution is certainly not what is best for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker I have is Matt Greenewald.
Good evening, all. It's always tough to follow our other speakers, but following Matt and Sema this evening is even more difficult, I suppose. I'm the SLEA Vice President. For anybody that doesn't know, Amy usually gets to speak. I don't. She makes me sit back there. I stand here this evening to express the continued frustrations of the learning management system, Infinite Campus. And I know Mike's going to speak about this later. And as always, these concerns have already been brought to the attention of central admin, but we feel it's important for the board to hear them as well, since recently board members have been asking about it. A year ago, administration recommended to the board that we adopt Infinite Campus as our new student information system. Tech director at that time, who was the one who recommended the change, then subsequently resigned from the district, and Mr. Fluck was not brought on and into his role for well over 3 months. At the same time, we were told that the information downloads would occur over the summer and Infinite Campus would be up and running seamlessly on day 1 of the school year. As with any switch in systems, we were prepared to handle bumps in the road and recognize that there would be some growing pains. However, nothing really prepared our staff for the complete and utter dysfunction of Infinite Campus. We're more than halfway through the school year. Infinite Campus is still an absolute mess. There's functions that staff use on a daily basis that are not user-friendly nor performing in the way we were promised. Special education side of Infinite Campus has been nothing short of a nightmare for our staff. These are just a few of the issues, but certainly not an exhausted list. Number 1, special ed teachers are still unable to progress monitor in Infinite Campus for any student who does not have an IEP that's been created in the system. They still can't upload data charts to an IEP. There's no ability to show cumulative progress, and there's very little training for our staff to adapt to the new restrictions of this system. When we started the school year, the information uploaded into the system was inaccurate or missing, and our high school guidance counselors had to manually create seniors' transcripts to send to colleges. This issue is still not entirely fixed because Infinite Campus is unable to run custom transcripts, and therefore counselors were unable to send mid-year transcripts to institutions and instead had to rely on sending second marking period report cards. There were major issues with the midterm grade reporting and semester final grade calculations that created a lot of angst for our students and our staff. Student course scheduling has been delayed because Infinite Campus is unable to handle the complexities of our course prereqs. There are also no parameters in the system, so currently our students can schedule as little as 2 or 3 credits or as many as 10 or 11. At the high school level, students were unable to schedule their Spartan periods at the beginning of the year, and instead our building admin had to hand schedule over 1,000 students. In previous years, students were also able to reschedule new Spartan periods to meet their needs in the second semester, and currently that's not possible. These are just a few examples of the functions that are not working appropriately. At this time, I honestly cannot think of one aspect of this system that is better than what we had. We're constantly in triage mode, trying to temporarily fix the next major issue. Years ago, when we switched to Sapphire, staff members were trained on the features of the system and its capabilities. That has not happened for staff, even though we have been asking for training and to meet with Infinite Campus representatives since the start of the school year. Infinite Campus's training mode is essentially like train the trainer, but that has consisted of learning individual functions on an as-needed basis. The trainers do not even know what the system is capable of, and I think Mike's going to speak to that a little bit this evening. We know how to take attendance, how to enter grades, and anything else we've had to figure out pretty much on our own. When teachers have questions, we often have to look up how to fix the issue, if we even can, and contact our building admin, who usually doesn't have the access to fix the problem. Additionally, there does not seem to be any consistency with the problems. Some things will work for one teacher and not work for other teachers. This just further complicates our ability to address those problems. Essentially, we're trying to build the plane while flying it, and right now we're barely keeping it in the air. Yes, we've partnered with Berks IU, and we know we have been doing a lot of that cleanup work since our files were not transferred properly by the former tech director, but those changes are not necessarily helping our staff on a daily basis. And if there are beneficial changes made, there's inconsistent follow-up communication to the staff about the issue to be addressed. To be clear, we are absolutely not pointing the finger at anyone in our tech department. We're so incredibly appreciative of Kelly Katzbach, the insurmountable work she has done to keep us afloat. We're pretty confident we wouldn't even have a functioning system without her. And although Mr. Fluck started the school year with us, he was not included in any of our discussions with central admin until 2 weeks ago when he was tasked with meeting with us. We appreciate that desire and want to help, but it's not his fault that he hadn't had any significant trainings in Infinite Campus. Bottom line, this is not what we paid for as a district. The system is more expensive than what we had in the past, and yet it's not producing the benefits that we deserve. From day one, we've questioned, why are we not holding Infinite Campus accountable? Why are we continuing to pay for a product that's not meeting our needs with the features that were promised to us as a district? Thankfully, and thank you to Mike, we are finally meeting with stakeholders and Infinite Campus folks next Monday. We knew that the first year of a new learning management system would have its challenges, for sure. If we were told and understood that these challenges would be temporary and that by the beginning of next year, we'd have a system that's fully functional, meets our needs, and is superior to the system we used to have, I think most staff, students, families would be very, very optimistic. However, based on the past 6 months and the current lack of substantial progress to adapt this system to our needs, we have asked central administration just as recently as the other day to investigate, and we really beg the board to consider possibly a new student information system for the 25-26 school year. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no further comments at this. I have no further visitor comments signed in to speak at this time unless somebody is going to correct me on that. All right. Moving on, I believe I have an executive session summary.
Yes, Ms. Gaiman, thank you. So on February 4th, 2025, the Facilities Committee held an executive session to discuss litigation. On February 10th, 2025, the full board held an executive session to discuss school safety, real estate, and a personnel matter. And tonight, prior to the board meeting, the full board held an executive session to discuss personnel, litigation, and real estate.
Thank you. I'm looking for approval of the board minutes of February 10th. I would like to say something first, kind of relates to the last meeting and some of what we heard this evening. And I've been reminded tonight from the comments and just other things that have transpired that the best piece of advice I've ever received from my own formal training as a school board director, and that is address the issue, not the director. I think some of that was touched upon tonight. When discussing a topic or asking a question, I was taught it's best to reflect upon whether you're addressing something that will come before the board for a vote and directly impact our collective decision-making process. Whether we as individual board directors are right or wrong or fit or unfit to hold these seats is not a decision that will ever come before this board for a vote. So I ask and I challenge each and every one of us to keep that in mind, myself included, as we serve our community as school directors, to address the issue, not the board member. And I'm reminded of that because there was a lot of that discussion, and we're about to vote on the minutes and reviewing the minutes, and I reflected upon the last board meeting and the topics discussed and how we can work better together. And that is the key point I came away with, was address the issue, not the board member. However, the one topic that came up, I noticed that when it came to issues that were before the board for a vote or that could potentially come before the board for a vote, I noticed this board, there was little to no disagreement between us as board members when we addressed those issues. But there was one topic where there was disagreement, and that's something that could potentially come before the board for a vote. And so I'd like to address it before we go into these minutes. The board's role in governance versus management came up, and that should be addressed. Under ordinary circumstances, this board's role is one of governance and guidance. And at its September 23rd meeting, the board decided that it was necessary to take official action and move from that government's role to one of protection. On September 23rd, there was discussion that the chosen board action circumvented the superintendent's judgment and altered the administrative structure of our district. I agree, it did. It does. This board needed to move from governance to protection, and now even further to intervention and protection. This is not micromanagement. That is what was discussed at the last meeting. In fact, it is a necessary action to prevent harm. That is what was being addressed at the last board meeting, and might continue to need to be addressed because it is a core function of our responsibility as school directors to hire, to direct, and if necessary, to take action to correct the superintendent's judgment. As the board has moved through this admittedly difficult process from governance to intervention, our superintendent has taken deliberate action to divide us and keep us in turmoil. He raises issues that he says are not meant to divide, but immediately and predictably do exactly that. He is present at various committee meetings, but does not support or endorse what members of his team present. And then after the meeting, he authors his own version of what transpired and sends that out to the full board and cabinet, which was also discussed at the last meeting. And as demonstrated tonight, now we even have staff who are publicly calling some of those actions out for what they are and have asked this board to dig deeper, I believe was the quote. To do so, to dig deeper, is not micromanagement. It is an appropriate and measured response. Our superintendent has repeatedly stated that he approaches his work with the best of intentions and explains how he wants this district to succeed, but his actions do not support this intent. Dr. May and I am your board president. The board has elected me to lead and speak on its behalf, and yet you did not so much as inquire about my availability before announcing a special meeting of the board on February 19th. And I am confident that I am not alone in that regard. Intentional miscommunication and last-minute changes in plans and agenda items have been a hallmark of your leadership, as discussed during the last meeting. Incomplete information presented to the board for action items such as the LLN contract, void of comments made during solicitor review, forces us as board members to continually have to choose between supporting students, like those who spoke tonight, and enabling your poor leadership. I do not say any of this lightly. I have served on this board for a decade, and I have served alongside Dr. Mann for over 3 years. Before the last meeting, I had never made such a public statement. And as I mentioned, I have tried repeatedly to address these issues with Dr. Mann to no avail. Everything I have said reflects my experiences as a member of this board, but they are my own. And I invite each of every one of you in this audience, in this community, in this staff and administration, and in this board to consider what I have said and to take an opportunity in the coming days and weeks to make your own observations. Thank you.
May I respond?
You may absolutely respond.
Thank you, Mrs. Gaiman. You raise very serious allegations. They lack specificity. I would certainly be happy to discuss either an executive session or in public, depending upon the mode, any specific concerns that you may have. Obviously, I disagree with the overriding sentiment that you express. I will say to you that I conduct my business in a transparent way. My door is always open. To the extent that people reach out to me by email or phone or in any way, I always go out of my way to respond. I will tell you that with respect to performance, if you look back over the last 3 years, Southern Lehigh quantifiably has had as much or more success than any district in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And that's not because of me, but all of us together contribute to it. Our success has been remarkable, and it has been a privilege for me to be, I think, an integral part of it. So to the extent that the board or any members of the board wish to engage in a conversation to dig deeper, I most welcome it, because any analysis, I believe, will show that we do things the right way here. And I am proud of the way I do my work. I plan to continue to do it as I have. I open to listen to what people have to say and respond and adjust as necessary. But I would encourage the board to speak with one voice together with me as your superintendent, to sit and to the extent there are problems, work through them, as opposed to hauling them out with generalities in a public meeting. Thank you.
All right. Moving on, could I?
I think board members should have an opportunity.
You may. If you would like to speak, you may absolutely speak. Would you like to go first, Mary Joy? Make sure the light
I have
is
to
lit.
hold this.
Yes, you
I
do.
think board members should have an opportunity to respond. First of
Yes,
all,
absolutely.
Mrs. Gaiman, I do not think your comments are appropriate for this meeting in a public venue. Number two, you are presenting this as if you're speaking for the whole board.
I stated
And
that
some-
at the end. I was speaking in my
And-
Can you
experience
please
as
let
a
her?
board member.
Can you please let her speak?
I will
You
correct.
constantly interrupt all of us. If it doesn't fit your agenda, will you please let her speak? Thank you.
So your presentation came off sounding to the public as if you were speaking for the whole board, or that you were representing other board members who might share your opinion. And I believe your opinion is without fact. This kind of communication belongs in executive session among the board members. You are out of order again, just as you were at the last meeting. And I departed from that meeting because you continued, Mrs. Gaiman, to conduct yourself with poor governance.
Mr. Wack, would you like to speak?
I would. So I would like to echo those similar sentiments in that you do not speak for me whatsoever. Just about everything you say is probably the opposite of how I feel. I would agree with Dr. Mann that we've been very successful over his 3 years as under leadership. And I would encourage everyone to go back to that September meeting that you described, where the leadership structure of the district changed such that now you are the leader for a particular individual.
That is incorrect.
Can you please let me speak? Thank you
Only
very much.
I
Can
will
you please
correct
not interrupt?
facts.
No, you
I will
you
correct
should not
facts.
interrupt me. No, you have no right whatsoever to interrupt me. What you state as facts is 100% opinion. But I would encourage the community, really, I would encourage the community to look back at that September meeting. And I believe four people voted against that settlement or whatever it was, because it was very clear that it was one-sided. I believe I used the term witch hunt. Please look that up. I believe what had occurred was what I would consider a witch hunt led by you. And that's not being mean. That's just being factual and accurate for our community. You do not speak for me. You do not speak for this entire board. You may have been voted by a majority of the board, but if you look at many of the votes, substantial votes, especially with regard to governance, there's pretty significant dichotomy within this board. And the way that you bring this up into public is very disturbing and, quite frankly, inappropriate. And I believe the minutes that we voted on, I used the term, and thank you, Ms. Mobley, for catching that I thought what occurred last meeting was inappropriate. I think what is occurring right now under your leadership is inappropriate.
Would anyone else like to speak? Ms. King?
In all the years on the board, I've never seen anything like that. I'm completely disgusted by what you just did. It's completely unprofessional. I've worked with Mike for over 3 years, and even before I got on the board, he had an open door policy, come in anytime, call him all the time. He answers all of my questions that day. What you're saying that he's not communicative is just garbage. It's just not true. And as the board president, I've written to you multiple times over email, and I've asked questions, and I've not received a response. And I will be happy to pull up those emails and resend them to you where you just don't respond. So when someone says uncommunicative, that's you. You don't respond, and you just ignore the four of us and anything that we have to say. And for some reason, you got 4 people on the board with you that agree with everything you say. I think there's been 1 vote that went with the 4 of us, and the rest of the time, it's always your way or the highway. This is not a board that works well together, and that's not the fault of the 4 of us. And I know everyone knows who the 4 of us are. It's sneaky and really upsetting to me. And you don't speak for me and never will.
Mr. Mon?
Yep. I just want to say that I am disappointed in the way this is being handled, and it's a shame that we're not getting together as a full board to discuss these issues. We've had intermittent discussions about various issues, but let's just say with regard to our superintendent. And unfortunately, we haven't had any full discussions to go through the issues that have been presented here tonight and last time. And I think it's ashamed that we are not getting together to have those discussions, because they're important from a teamwork standpoint. They're important from a forward-looking strategic standpoint for the school district. And I would request that we have discussions in full on this particular topic in an executive session so that we can hash out objectives, performance, good, bad, and different. I think it's high time. We should have had this probably months ago, even more than months ago at this point. But I request that we have a discussion on this in executive session to hash out where we are, where we've been, and where we're headed moving forward here, because we cannot keep doing this in these venues here. Number one, this wasn't even on an agenda. We're talking about it in meeting minutes section of our agenda. And nobody is really prepared to even have a rational discussion on this, because it's just popping out once again like a jack in the box. So that's my request. And I would hope that this board would agree with the fact that we get together in executive session to have a logical and forward-looking discussion on this subject.
I would like to add that I have requested numerous executive sessions, Mrs. Gaiman, from you, and you have failed to respond to those emails or to schedule them. I would like that to be in the public record.
Anyone else? All right. So I started my comments by saying we should endeavor to address the issue, not the person. I will include myself in that. I ask you to continue to reflect on that, because I think it's the way boards function very well, to address the issue, not the individual. As far as those questions that were directed directly at me, I have not, Ms. King, answered the questions on email exchanges in the board, because it would be a violation of sunshine to answer and deliberate on questions when you have posed them to the full board in email to me. I will not violate the sunshine law. I have also not addressed and called for exec sessions, Ms. Reinhartz, because one board member requesting an exec session does not an exec session make. At no point in time have multiple board members
The
asked.
performance of the superintendent belongs in executive sessions. Once again, you're out of order.
I'm not out of order. I'm addressing your question that you raised directly at me in a session. You asked for an executive session. You said you've asked for it multiple times. And while that is true, one board member requesting an executive session does not constitute the need to hold an executive session.
I
And
think
if-
you have two now, maybe three. I don't know.
Yes, yes. So, but I was specifically addressing Ms. Reinhardt's statement that she has emailed me many times, and she has individually requested an exec session, and sometimes she's addressed it to me and sometimes she's addressed it to the board, but nobody ever followed up, and I did not see the need as president to call it for the reason she stipulated. And I also didn't think it would be productive at that time for the reasons in the
So you don't believe the superintendent's performance belongs in executive session? Is
I
that
do.
what you're saying?
I do.
Then why are you discussing it here, Mrs. Gaiman?
This is not the superintendent's performance evaluation. I was addressing an issue that was raised publicly at the last meeting. You asked why I made this public statement. It was because other board members raised the issue, and an audience member raised the issue of micromanagement. And I reflected on that, and I looked at the last board meeting and I watched the video. And I felt it necessary to point out and to explain governance as I see it. And you say I spoke for the full board. I explicitly stated my statement at the end. I speak from my experiences as a board member. What I did say is I have been elected to speak for and represent this board, and Dr. Mahan did not so much as contact me to see my availability. I said it in that context. You are correct. But this is my experience as a board member, and I ask that we work together the last meeting ended with Mr. Mons saying, gosh, we really need to work together. And I came back saying, why did I feel that that was not necessarily working or always genuine, or what do I see as the obstacle? And what I come back to every time, and in fact, I looked at the September 23rd meeting before tonight, Mr. Wayock, and I saw that on September 23rd, again, when we had that kind of conflict, I asked that I think it's helpful to address the issue, not the individual. And because it was brought up publicly in the first place, I felt the need to address that because it's a key point of governance of this board, and it's important for the community to understand that there's a difference and there's a time and a place for different board action. And it's very unusual, but I felt the need to explain. Are there any other comments? I belabored this enough. All right. I'm looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes of February 10th, 2025.
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Carney.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer. Any questions or comments?
I do have a question or a comment, I should say. So I guess I just wanted to clarify, and maybe this would be for our legal counsel, regarding the minutes. So if we wanted to clarify something in our minutes, solicitor, can we like bring up a whole nother topic and that can be put in the minutes? Or I guess I just had a question regarding what Mr. Boyer had brought up, wanted to change the minutes and kind of brought up something that we didn't even really discuss and kind of brought up personnel issues that are now listed in the minutes. Is that appropriate?
I think if there was a clarification concerning an issue that became before the board, I'll have to go back that way. I can specifically read that section of the minutes to take a look at it.
Are you referring specifically to A2
Sorry,
motion?
I was specifically talking with the solicitor and just regarding specifically what Mr. Boyer had added for the previous minutes.
Chris, I'm the board president. I'm just helping her clarify
Sorry, I'm
because
just
she was not here at the
communicating
last
directly
meeting.
to the solicitor. Thank you very much.
That's not an option. It's a public meeting. So, Ms. Moyer, I believe A2, there was a motion to approve the school board meeting minutes. You were not here at the last meeting. And then there is A2 motion to amend the school board meeting minutes to include the following statement. And the motion was made. It was seconded. The motion carried to amend the minutes. No comments or objections were made to the motion to amend the minutes.
I don't believe that's correct.
I'm reading off of
I
the
don't
minutes.
believe
I'm
that's
just reading what it says. Like, I'm not trying to make a statement. I'm reading what it says. No comments or objections were made. There was a vote. It passed. And then the vote was taken to approve the meeting minutes with amendment, and that passed unanimously. So to pass the meeting with the amendment passed unanimously.
Sorry. Dr. Wayock, to answer your question, at that point of time, there should have been an objection to amending the minutes, and if it would have been voted down, then the meeting minutes would not have been amended. For purposes of tonight, you can choose not to approve the meeting minutes.
These minutes.
Just if I felt like it
Correct.
was an inappropriate, statement, inappropriate comment, personnel comment, it's okay to just not approve that. Is that correct?
Well, you voted to
I'm
approve.
sorry, I was talking to the solicitor. Thank you very much.
I'm
Yes,
clarifying.
For purposes of tonight, yes, you can
Great.
vote
Thank
no.
you very much.
Mhm.
Thank you, solicitor.
However, the minutes do reflect that in the last meeting, you did vote to approve those minutes. So to clarify, you were saying that you're just having a discussion about this evening's vote. Is that correct? And your ability to vote no to these evening's minutes.
I believe I made my point clear. Thank you.
Okay, good. Any other questions or comments about the minutes?
I would just like to ask if the other board members, Ms. Cruz, Ms. Torba, Mr. Boyer, or Mr. Carney have any comments with regard to the subject that we just finished. I think it's important to hear from them if they have comments there. And I haven't heard anything on any of this. So
And you would like to ask that before we vote for last meeting's minutes?
yes.
Okay. I'll leave a minute for anyone to comment if they so choose.
I don't know why we're going in reverse.
Okay, then I see no comments are wanting to be made, at which point I call the question. All those in favor of I'm sorry. Wait, no, Ms. Okay. Thank you. No, I appreciate you're on mic duty and you were doing your duty, Dr. Trinkle. Thank you. You were doing a great job. But Ms.
Ms. Gaiman, before we vote on those.
Yes, please.
Mr. Mon, I appreciate that you were extending to hear from others from the board. And I appreciate and respect that the 9 of us, the full board, do need to conduct an executive session to talk through items that are specific towards performance. I understand that, and I agree to that as well. The opinions that get thrown, or those that claim that there's fact to support the opinion, then please represent that. But this constant they versus us, that has to stop. It has to stop. So whatever that takes for the 9 of us to come together and find our ways to move forward, the sooner the better. All for that, because we right now are setting a tone to our public on how we conduct business. And I don't think it's a true reflection. And I can only speak about myself, why I'm sitting in this chair, why I ran for board. And for me, it is student-centric, looking forward to our 3,100 plus students, our over 400 plus staff, and moving Southern Lehigh, being forward-thinking. That's why I'm sitting in this chair. I don't have an agenda. I don't have a personal agenda. None of my questions will be around my daughter who is enrolled in the district, because I have full faith in our staff and our administration that my daughter will be okay and graduate with successful career. So back to you, Mr. Bond. I agree the 9 of us need to come together, whether it's in an executive session or a ropes course where we learn to trust one another. Just putting a little light there but I do agree, because we cannot continue like this. I think every one of us brings forth a talent and a skill set to this board. I know deep down in all of our hearts, we do want to do what's right by our students and our staff and our community. But these little mind games and checkers that we're playing here with one another, there's feedback. It's getting us nowhere. So however we can address that so that we can put those games away and focus on why we're all sitting here in this chair and put our personal biases to the side and move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Torba. I appreciate your comments.
Mr. Carney.
As Eric said, I feel like we're moving backwards, and I'm here to do the business, and for me to combat any comments made that I felt were more personal in nature versus getting done with the business tonight, then I just feel it wouldn't be constructive or positive. So I'm just trying to move it on.
Thank you. Yes. Hold just 1 second, Ms. Cruz. We can hear you, but we want to make sure the public can. Go ahead.
I just wanted to echo the comments of Ms. Torba and Mr. Mond, and to support Ms. Reinhardt's proposition that we meet in executive session. These are very serious topics, and I think that it's important for us to meet as a board to have those conversations.
Agreed. All right. Could I have a motion and a second? Could I have a vote to approve the minutes, please?
Second.
Oh, we have the motion and a second, I believe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
I have 2 opposed. Note that Dr. Wack and Ms. Reinhardt's opposed, and the rest were yay. Thank you. Moving on in the agenda. I have the superintendent's report and district updates.
Thank you, Mrs. Gaiman. I do want to begin by just saying it was never my intention to slight you in any way on the meeting on the February 19th. When we left the meeting, we knew we had at least in my thought, we had to schedule a meeting on short notice to see if we get that vote in. And I perhaps should have called you first. I'm not saying I shouldn't have, but I actually reached out to my secretary. I said, see if we could get 5 was really the approach, because there was a single item on the agenda and that was really my only intention. So it was never an intent to slight. And when I'm finished tonight, if there is anyone who would like to dig deeper, so to speak, with respect to Mrs. Bauscher, I would enthusiastically and happily take questions from the board or reiterate what I mentioned in executive session as to why that fell through. So again, I'm very happy to dig deeper, because that is not an issue for executive session, and one that I'd be very happy to address in public should the board or anyone on the board wish to do so. Now, I have, I think, a really pretty decent presentation tonight. Not all good, but a lot of it is good. So I want to begin by talking about, excuse me there, this jumped, Southern Lehigh Education Foundation. Tonight on our agenda, we're accepting a donation of $11,000. This $11,000 supports some great work done by our teachers for innovative grant opportunities. The foundation has said they're going to restart it up in the spring. Dr. Solometo is going to get to work on getting that going. And also, I'm very pleased to say that that $11,000 is also in support of students who have who qualify for free and reduced lunch and who participate in our dual enrollment program. And this payment goes to offset those costs for those students. And I just listed here as links, dual enrollment program. Our kids have the opportunity to essentially go to a college when they come to Southern Lehigh High School. There is just a great opportunity there for them. And then Mr. Miller, who could not be with us tonight, I know communication is something that the board has asked us to improve with respect to dual enrollment. So I put a link in there for how students can get connected. And then I finally listed those individuals who are on the SLEF board who are doing a lot of work to raise money for opportunities for our kids. Any questions on SLEF before we jump? Okay. Student activities. And while I can't match our students, I do want to say Legally Blonde is coming up from the 12th to the 16th. If you want to check out this presentation and click that link, you can buy tickets. Mrs. Webb sent me some amazing information on the Pennsylvania Junior Academy of Science. We had 8 first-place state qualifying winners and a number of other people who did well. And that's a really great team they have going there. And then also at the middle school, tomorrow night, we have the STEAM Expo, and I put a link there for anyone who wants to check out this amazingly good partnership with so many organizations that Mrs. Webb has built up over the course of 2 years now? Maybe this is our third one, right? Okay. All-day kindergarten, right? District administration under the leadership of Dr. Trinkle has been meeting regularly with representatives from Alloy 5. We've collected demographic data, building evaluations, and administrative interviews have all taken place. I've had the chance actually to meet with the head developer at the Promenade project, and I've gathered some notes and information on that we're going to have to incorporate into our work. And we are almost ready to report. So district administration will provide a progress report at our next meeting, right? And it's fully recognized this is a significant decision that will require careful deliberation by the board. No decisions next meeting, but we're going to start talking about if we are to move in this direction, what it might look like for us. And I do want to, absolutely assure the board, and this is a conversation that all of our team has had, if it's determined that all-day K is to be implemented, and we know that's a big if, our administrative team is ready to make it happen in the fall of 2026, if that's where we're heading. Now, Infinite Campus, right? Here are some challenges. And Mr. Boyer asked us to include this, I think, in our last meeting. So this by no way is comprehensive, but I just want to kind of address in broad strokes some of the things that are happening. The implementation of Infinite Campus has been a significant challenge and source of frustration for everyone associated with Southern Lehigh School District. Absolutely true, right? Administrators, professional staff, and support staff have done and continue to do exceptional work to maintain Infinite Campus. And every time we talk about work, I will always mention Kelly Katzbach for the amazing stuff that she's doing to keep us all rolling here, right? Now, we have, even though it's hard to imagine, we have made steady and measurable progress. And we have and we continue to make it. But here's the thing, right? Issues are still arising, and it was everyone's hope, and I think that you probably said it better, right? But we like still, right? And that is the frustration. And I will also say that an issue that would have been small in September feels bigger now because of the challenges that have been going on. So particular areas of concern, and these are, I think, are consistent with what has been said. Special education has been a challenge. High school student services have been a challenge. And this is, the last thing is professional development. We have had lots of professional development, right? We've gone online, people have come in, they go through things. And I will tell you, it's not that we haven't had it, but I don't know that it's very high in quality, right? And I will give my own example. I'm pretty adept at ad hoc reports, right? I went to a significant training on ad hoc reports, and I came out of the meeting not knowing a lot more, the training, not knowing a lot more about being able to do it than when I went in, right? So, training is definitely an issue. And the other thing is that when some of our people are sitting at their computers and they're having trouble, they're wondering, is this the system or is it me, some little block that needs to be unchecked, right, to kind of make it work. So these problems are absolutely real. So what are we doing, right? We've had a good partnership with Berks IU. We continue to upgrade the special education module, which is not the strongest of Infinite Campus, and that's where we have a lot of our problems. And it is a frustration more than any other group in our district for our special ed people, our special ed teams. We have, however, because of a bad data download, we have now been able to recapture over 30,000 of counselor notes and get them into the system. Our historical attendance is done. We're on the verge of having our discipline infractions done. They're in our staging site, our sandbox area, and we'll soon be moving up. Once we get those done, we're going to take historical grades and get them going again. We shouldn't even be having this conversation. That should have been up in the system at the onset. But again, we're doing this progress, right? Our director of technology is now meeting every week with our building level administrators and union leadership. A real-time single source document of challenges and actions has been created with a district-wide focus. Mr. Fluck is doing a good job with that. And then we do have a meeting, and this was just established today, a meeting set for March 3rd at 3:30 with Infinite Campus. We've been in touch with union leadership for their participation there, administration. And I do want to invite board members. Any board members who wish to participate in that meeting are most welcome. Just send me an email. And we're also compiling lists of concerns that we want to get to them in advance. And they may be specific or they may just be general, right? Why are we sticking with you, right? Might be one of the questions that, why should we stick with you? Might be one of the questions that we would ask. Okay.
One of the things I want to ask before we move on from Infinite Campus, since we're on this, I want to know, one, dates as to when these things are going to be accomplished, because without dates, then we don't know when this is going to be done. Number two, do we understand the full extent of condition of what issues arise? I hear that this is a list. I hear from Greenie a list. They don't match. So what else is out there is what I want to know. And then number three, I want to know, why have we not explored going back to the services agreement that is capable of being done by Infinite Campus instead of languishing this process a lot longer? I mean, we're almost at the end of the school year and this is even rolled out. So I'd like to know the answer as to why we didn't do that, because this could have all been headed off the path much sooner. It's nice to see that some of these things are in motion now. But once again, this is February 24th. This is what I would have expected to see the first week of September when we identified the mess that we were in.
And I can tell you, Mr. White, we can go back to what we were doing September 1st and all the way through and go blow by blow, step by step. This has been an all of district response. All right. And so this is not like we're just realizing this is a problem and we're just moving forward. These are 3 slides, right? We could talk for 3 hours on this problem. It has been on the top of everyone's agenda since day one. We recognize the problems that is faced. Great work has been done, and a lot has to be done. And there is still some uncertainty, But this is not. We are not late to recognizing this is a problem. And there's been a great amount of work that has been done by a lot of people in this place to try to get it resolved. Yes.
So I will take you up on that meeting for March 3rd.
Right.
once again, as I'll go back to like 2 weeks ago, what I said, I expect an update every 2 weeks. Mine personally, just to make sure that
Yeah.
we're pushing this and
You
moving this in the
can
right
call me
direction.
every day, Mr. Boyer, and I will give you an update.
Careful what you wish for.
No, I actually do. I actually do. You are welcome at any time, right? And if any board member wants to come in and talk to some staff, we'll get a few of you together. We will do that, right? Because we're not trying to like push anything aside. We do think we have made progress. I know we have made progress, right? I also know that people are frustrated because it's not their job to look for progress. It's their job to do IEPs, right? And that's the approach that we're taking here. Okay, so just zip me an email. Yes, Mr. Carney.
I didn't know if you want Infinite Campus questions now or wait.
Oh, I have
To the
other
end.
things. So Infinite Campus is great right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it says discipline infractions are a staging site. So if a student in a classroom, there's an infraction, they
Yes.
can't go on the system now, click and.
No,
So how are they tracking the
no,
discipline?
that's my lack of clarity,
Yeah.
right? Currently, if a student has an infraction and they, whatever, that goes in the system, no problem, right? What we're talking about here is that for counselor notes, attendance, discipline infraction, and grades, normally when you move from one student information system to another, you have a big download of years of data, which we did, right? But because of data quality issues, all of that data could not be uploaded to the other one. So currently, as you put in attendance and you put in things, even as you put in an IEP, it's a better situation than trying to draw from the past. And that's why we're kind of chipping away with the help of Berks IU. They've been a good partner. Excellent question.
Just quickly,
I'm going to
go ahead.
Ms. Cruz.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that we've made the partnership with the Berks IU, who seems to have more experience with the system compared to our own IU. I know that doesn't have that same experience. Can the Berks IU help us to bridge the gap with Infinite Campus, either in that meeting or in other ways? I would assume, since they have a lot of expertise in Infinite Campus, that hopefully that they can help be a bridge for those conversations.
Yeah, they are very, very helpful to us. We've asked them to take on as large a role as they care to. And I think that their role right now is at the care to limit right now, right? As far as they're coming in and playing a more active role. But Berks IU is great. They do this for their own districts. They've been a great help to us. And to the extent that we could further utilize them, we will. But there are some upper limits at this moment on what they would like to do for us.
Dr. Mann, can you just comment, what would be the process of going back to our prior system or looking at a different system? Because this really has
Well,
been a
this
bit
is
of a
where I
disaster.
was going.
Yeah.
Was
So-
to get an
sorry.
estimate. That's all right. To get an estimate on percent complete, right? Because if you're 60, 70, 80% of this done, you're not going back. But
Well-
to Mr. Greenewald's point
Right.
about reverting, it
Right.
seems to me after all this time that would be problematic. But what's the
You're
case
right.
there?
I don't want to prejudge the question, but I'll offer my thoughts, right? First, we had a broad, this wasn't an administration, well, here, let's decide, right? We had a wide range of professional staff members come in for extensive periods of time. And this is what was the recommendation of that group, right? Now, it was not unanimous, right? In fact, I kind of thought Power School was good, but I was all in and supportive of the recommendation of the group, which was Infinite Campus, right? The group also felt that Sapphire was not meeting our needs, right? Absolutely clear. No one was happy with Sapphire, right? And Infinite Campus was an excellent recommendation, right? I had done an Infinite Campus conversion in my previous place, right? So I was familiar with Infinite Campus. It was a good decision, right? Now, Infinite Campus, right, is not doing justice by us, but if you look at Infinite Campus overall, right, they are a good system, right? They are they're being adopted more quickly than other systems across the nation. North Carolina, and I think maybe one of the Dakotas, adopted them as their own singular state system. So again, I'm not defending Infinite Campus. They have caused more grief here than you can imagine, right? But here's the thing, right? It is conceivable that if we were to jump and go back to Sapphire, or I think more likely Power School, right? There would be a danger that we would be doing more harm than good at this point, right? Because while, we didn't shut down, right? If we look at the data quality and where we are right now, for us to be in a position to jump back to a different system, I'm not saying no, right? But I'm saying that we would have to be very, very cautious and think very carefully before we would do such a thing at this point. And I know that's maybe not the thing we wish to do, right? But at the end of the day, like, do no harm, and we're in a bad spot, but we could make it worse. And that's what we would have to be very careful to consider as we look at all options.
Is the
Yeah, I
option-
think in my experience, it's the point of no return at some point. It would seem to me that it would be there now, but obviously I don't know the details in that. It's just my experience with other, let's say, commercial systems, not institutional, but they're very similar in their database structures and interfaces and all of those things. So it seems like it would be difficult, but that's why I'm asking, because
No, it's a
it
good
is
question.
brought
It's
up.
one that's
that,
we're
yeah.
and it's one that I want to have asked to Infinite Campus when they're right there talking to us. I think that should be very high on our list of questions to ask them.
Mr. Bond, that's a great question. Student information systems, they are very robust. I compare this project to the remodeling of our stadium and our football field and the bricks on the IS, where there was a team in play and that project, and you met weekly, where there was updates frequently to lead to the success of the stadium and fixing the bricks on the IS. I keep hearing the phrase data quality, and that's where this starts. So July of 2024, data quality should have been there. Maybe not 100%, but 97%. So when our staff are back in August, they can access the data to prepare for instruction. What does that mean? Have access to IEPs so they understand their students, 504s, GIEPs, SDIs, have access to discipline so that they understand the student holistically, have access to counselor notes, those things so we understand our students, access to accommodations, so instruction, where do I need to place a student? I'm just giving an example of what I'm referencing. That's data quality. Part of it is from a download and an upload. Should have been done in July, so we were prepared for our staff to be prepared to walk into their classroom and interact with students and with parents. So data quality should have been there in July. We make it through to marking period 1, which ends around November. Report cards go out. Those are external facing documents. Transcripts go out for our seniors. That data quality was not done. Guidance had to manually enter 4 years of courses and credits, manually hand calculated GPA. Most people don't even know how to calculate a GPA. And we know where some of our students apply. And it doesn't matter if they apply to MIT or L-Tri-C. Those seniors were not done. The juniors, and it goes back to data quality, because you have to look at the historical courses and how they were configured so that that credit in GPA is calculated correctly. Data quality. So then here we are, January, marking period 2, high school students, semester courses. That's credit in GPA. It's called a seventh semester transcript that those students are applying, seniors. They need that transcript to go to colleges. They couldn't be sent. Data quality. A report card had to be sent. A lot of colleges don't even accept it. Marking period 2 report card. I am deep in the weeds because it all goes back to data quality. Mr. Manya asked, how far are we? Because could we go look at a different provider? The answer could be yes, the answer could be no. But if that answer is yes, it can't follow the way this project went. There needs to be a team in place, kind of like how you facilities ran with the stadium and the track and the bricks on the IS. There were thorough meetings and consistent updates to keep those projects on task. This, once the director of tech left who oversaw the project in June, there hasn't been updates. And now we've heard from the union on them bringing their concerns. And where is that data quality? Mr. Carney asked about discipline infractions. Teachers and staff need to see prior years. State reporting needs to see prior years. Where it says it's in staging, it's not in a live database. So staff are yet limited. Attendance. Our staff need to see if I'm in period 4, where was that student in period 1 and 2? MJ, I'm sorry, this is long, but this is all about data quality. Historical attendance, that reports to the state.
Can I make a suggestion?
I'm in the weeds so that we understand data
I agree
quality.
with you.
I'm giving you fact.
I'm
I'm
not
giving you
I'm not disagreeing with
We're
you.
not going to interrupt
giving
each other.
examples.
We're not
I
going to
know,
interrupt
that's a
each
lot.
other.
I'm
Data
just thinking
quality.
that maybe this belongs in a committee meeting
MJ.
with the administration to work through the historical
It was
things that
we've had in tech committee.
Well, then-
Drawing up how you calculate your GPAs.
We talked about that last meeting too, how that tech committee meeting structure went. Continue, Ms. Torba.
I see that we are steady. I think it was on slide 10, steady and measurable. What goals and objectives were set so that we can measure where we are with this project? Slide 11, special education is a weak component of Infinite Campus. We're saying it's the weak component. It's the weakest module. Is that a fit? Is it a fit for Southern Lehigh and how we run our business? Maybe we are there. Back to Mr. Mon's question. Maybe we need to reevaluate special education, and it draws a lot of our funding, and it drives instruction, and it's the weakest module. Slide 12, where our director of technology is meeting with administrators and union leadership. I believe that started the second week of February. So here we are, a failed project. Infinite Campus is amazing. It's a robust tool. It really is. It provides a lot of functionality. Our staff haven't been able to see it. And I'd ask, if we form a committee, how are we going to turn that back to gain their trust that this product can do and meet the needs of Southern Lehigh? Or maybe it doesn't, and that we have to be okay with that answer too. And we better hurry up because it's March. Could you spin up a new student information system for August 28th? In my 25 plus years experience, yes, you can, but you need a team. You have to have a plan in place. But seeing special education as the weakest module, I would question, we need to really evaluate that and see, do we need to find a better fit? It's not meeting our needs.
I would absolutely love to hear an answer to that, because I think we're on the same page. I can't tell you how frustrating it is for me as a father who has a junior. When I learned, transcripts, absolutely. This Infinite Campus rollout has been a disaster. And I have to say, yeah, and listen, here's another issue, right? Here's another issue regarding that. So I believe Mr. Greenwald mentioned that a specific administrator had to schedule 1,000 students for their Spartan period. Well, guess how it was done? Alphabetical order. Guess what my last name is? Okay. No, everyone laughs in here, but this is not funny at all. Okay, this isn't funny because my junior didn't get any of his Spartan periods, didn't get any extracurriculars because of his last name. That's a joke. So that's an absolute joke. So that is very inappropriate. But what's frustrating to me and what the community needs to know, and I've actually brought this up before, because you had mentioned our stadium project. And I have to say, we met, every other week, every week throughout the entire summer. And when I learned that the technology committee did not meet all last summer at all, that really bothered me. It bothered me as a board member, and I mentioned it. I mentioned it in public. I mentioned it in private, and I've asked you multiple times, why would you not meet over the summer when we're rolling out a brand new program? And this affects our students and affects me personally. Now, this is a very frustrating. So I understand. I understand your frustration, data quality, 100%. It should have been there over the summer. But what I asked this board, and this when all these committees were formed, and 4 of us were left out of most of the committees.
You didn't
where we
request to
had
be on
success
any
from.
committees.
Please do not
Christopher,
interrupt me.
I
did
offered
so.
you a
Oh,
position
you
on
go
the
back and look at
technology
your
committee.
emails.
I
go
offered you a
back and look at your
position and you
emails. Do me a
declined it.
favor.
I
Do
said you may
not-
take my
just
position.
stop.
I will
am
gladly.
talking-
No,
I am talking to my fellow
absolutely
board
not.
members, and
Absolutely
I'm talking
not.
to the community.
I have an email that I
that
offered you a
this
position
is
on the
an
technology
issue.
committee, and you
This
said you
is
had
an
no
issue.
interest whatsoever.
This is an issue. This is an absolute issue. And so
And
I
I will
understand.
provide
and if
that
we were going
email.
to sit there and we're going to grandstand,
And you may
which,
write to
quite
no
frankly,
request it.
sounds like what we're doing. We're grandstanding about frustrations. That's a frustration I've had on this board, and what our community should learn, that this new committee structure that was formed last year, the technology committee did not meet one time in the summer. That's problematic. That's problematic.
Well, it's also hard to have the meeting when you're being told updates, even in a public setting like this. We're being told updates by the superintendent that this project is on pace, actually ahead of schedule. And what I'm confused as to why the bells weren't alarmed in June as to, hey, we're not on schedule. Because I have a hard time believing that in April, May, June, what we're being told is we're on target, we're on pace for this. And then all of a sudden come August, I don't even know if we were 15%. So now it makes me beg the question, what was the story that we were actually really being told? Because to me, it sounds like we weren't on pace back in April, but just nobody wanted to admit that and figure out a solution. And I go back to, don't interrupt me.
I agree with
and
you.
I go
And
back
if our
to
committee
stop.
met, maybe we would learn that.
Stop. I've given you the professional courtesy to let you speak and not interrupt you. I asked for the same thing. What I'm asking is why did we not go back and go with the services agreement that's capable and provided by Infinite Campus? And instead, we decided to make the decision to utilize all of our resources, whether it's in the IT department, whether it's in the administration department, whether it's in the teaching department or the supporting department. Why did we decide to spend those additional money and additional funds and take away from people's primary job function when we could have just now used that same money and probably cheaper at this point, and this would have been rolled out successfully right in the get-go? That's the real question that needs to be asked, not what you're bringing up.
If you check the tape of the April general board meeting, Dr. Mahan reported that all the professionals said we were on point or ahead of schedule, and that's what he reported. So I don't understand how we went from April to being ahead of schedule and how then kindergarten registration did not go well. The summer did not go well. And the tech committee was asking those questions. We were also asking other questions because if you recall, the tech committee was talking at that time about a device rollout for the following year. And that was also not planned ahead of schedule on time. Ms. Torba and I asked multiple times as tech committee members, could we please have the contract for when Apple Care expires on our devices? And we asked an email and over email after email after email, and Dr. Mann did not provide that information until she and I attended an Apple meeting, and he was upset to see us there. But Apple told us that the Apple Care contract had expired 4 days ago. So I have email after email of us as board members asking him for that information, couldn't get it. We were invited by Apple and Tech through a professional connection that Ms. Torba had. Thank goodness for Kelly Katzbach. Thank goodness for Mel Torba. So we knew we had Apple Care gone 4 days after it expired because Dr. Mahan didn't give us that information. So the tech committee was concentrating on what in the world are we going to do about devices this following year? And that's also the focus. We were told Infinite Campus is fine, Infinite Campus is fine. I just found out I know more as a parent about the failure of Infinite Campus than I do from the updates I ask of my superintendent in tech. On the first day of school, There were staff members staying up late, desperately trying to get IEP access. My kid's special education meeting months later, the longest part of the meeting was special educators trying to figure out how to look up my kid's IEP in that meeting. It was the longest part of the meeting to update his simplistic special ed programmatic needs. And my kid is not a high needs kid. It's a simple allergy type issue, right? I still, as a high school parent, not saying anything against the school counselors or the high school at all. The last I checked was Thursday. I still could not see my child's second quarter report card. Teachers in classrooms can't see if my kid was there the period before or not. That's a safety issue. We have a fire drill. Who's going to know who's even in school and where they are? And update after update, we are being told of the success stories of Intimate Campus. We are making progress. We're making great progress. I'm not going to reward or congratulate progress except for the staff members. God bless you all. But I'm not going to reward progress that is being made on a problem that should have never happened. And it's a failure, frankly, of the leadership I was talking about, that you did not adequately notify this staff, this board, and this community. You talk about data issues. It was an upload issue. The data that was uploaded in the spring was corrupt and unworkable. And even if we get it all set, because it's being hand entered at this point, I have no faith as a board member that I'm being adequately told what the issues are so I can apply resources. It is, you were responsible, Dr. Mann, for tech. Meeting after meeting this summer, you said, I have to go, I have an infant campus training. I have to go, I have an infant campus training. This is your project, and you failed to keep us abreast and update us. I'm learning more now from the union tonight than I have learned from you as a board member who's requested this information for months upon months upon months.
Okay, let me just say, when we come to root causes, I would ask the board to respect that it should be an executive session. Tonight, we can go down the hall in executive session and talk about root causes and why in April we were well ahead of the game and what happened subsequently. Very good questions, totally happy to answer them, but not in the course of a public meeting because it's reflective of individuals, which we just should not have here.
That would have been
Right.
great information to have when it happened, whenever that was, May, June, July.
Well,
that would have been wonderful if you'd called an executive session to explain to us the problems that we are about to experience
right.
going into the school year, not when we demand them of you in April, not when Mr. Boyer says next meeting, I need an update. If you knew there were problems that were appropriate for an executive session, then you should have called one.
No, Mrs. Gaiman, I was just told that the information when I said everything is really good in April was inaccurate. The reality is it was accurate, and I would be very happy to explain to the board why it was accurate to refute the suggestion that I provided misinformation. That's all, right? So again, you could throw that out. It's a legitimate question. I did say we were ahead in April. In fact, I remember interacting with the project manager from Infinite Campus, and I said, look, I'm concerned. He said, look, we've done this. She said, look, we've done this many times. Everyone is nervous, but as far as where you are right now compared to other school districts in this process, you are ahead of the game, right? And so I reported that because at the time it was true. All right. And yes, I oversee everything here. I'm responsible for, I am not a tech person. Okay. I am not. And if you look, if we want to talk about meetings, I can show you probably 10,000 agendas of members of our staff, myself included, sitting to trying to unwind this problem. And as far as the problem itself, it's unacceptable, right? I agree with the frustrations that are being expressed. And if we wish to talk about how and why it happened, I'm very happy to take that on tonight after the meeting in executive session if we care to. Okay. All right.
I just wondered, just back to my original question, is there any kind of basic percentage of the 30,000 foot view as to where we are with the project? Is it at least higher than 50%?
Mr. Munn, I think,
is there a way to gauge that?
Here's what I will tell you, right? We are all in with respect to the project, right? And we are now in the frustrating process of learning the system, of still addressing data quality issues, which again, I'm very happy to discuss in a different forum with the full board, or anyone who wishes to give me a call. Okay. But at this point, it's like if you asked in April where we were, we say, look, we have all of our data, right? We have things set up as far as the interface, but we could jump, right? We can go either way. We could stick with our previous system, right? Right now, I see us as largely committed to Infinite Campus, which is not to say I am committed to that answer, okay? But yeah, I am responsible for everything that happens in this school district. I own it, all right? And I think that far more great things have happened than haven't. I'm not happy with Infinite Campus, but I also think that if given the opportunity to sit down and say, how did you respond to this? That I could come up with a case that maybe says we did a good job dealing with a very bad situation. And that's a case I'd be happy to try to sit and talk about in executive session with respect to my performance. All right. I think it's a case I can make. And even if I can't, I would appreciate the opportunity to make it as opposed to characterizations that are being made more broadly. Okay.
I do want to request an executive session after today's meeting.
Yeah, and if the board doesn't wish to go down, I could, talk to people individually if you want to give me a call, but I'm very happy to do it for the full board tonight. Okay. Any other questions on Infinite Campus? And if you'd like to get invited, just shoot me an email and we'll get you up for that meeting. Okay. And then we do have an additional recommendation for Infinite Campus that we'll get to in Mr. Pepe's section of the meeting tonight as we look at potential staffing for next year. So that's a preview of coming attractions. Okay. Any further questions on Infinite Campus? Again, I look forward to continuing this conversation. All right. Just a few small things. High school parking. We've had longstanding challenges, certainly every year since I've been here, about limited student parking at the high school. Well, we don't have a comprehensive solution. I think we have some workable plans to increase student parking by adding spots over at the middle school. The logistic issues are significant, but now that the parking lots have cleared, we're going to paint 20 spots down there and see if we can at least put a small dent in what has been a persistent problem for a long time. Okay. Yes.
How many spots are required to meet the needs of the students now?
Any idea? Like if we were to give everyone who applied a parking ticket, and I don't want to put you on the spot, no. Mr. Petronio? No. Okay. I think that number might have been shared with me, but I am certainly not recalling it.
Is it more than 20?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think 30 would be an ideal number additional. I
Yeah.
probably have about 20 some students that are currently on the wait list.
Oh, okay. So 20 is pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and we may be able to get as many as 40, but we're being cautious at 20 at this point.
Just on that issue, it's my understanding, just from recollection, that I believe the junior class is a larger than typical class. It's the bubble class. There is a current bubble class in the high school. Like one class is larger than the other. Is it potential that once students become of driving age next year, that needed number is going to change? So it might be 20 now, but is there a bubble year that's graduating now? Or do we know, like, is the senior class the bubble year? Is the junior class the bubble year? I just wanted to point that out because 20 spaces now might not address what we're looking at for next year.
And this is a partial solution.
Right.
We are
okay.
not claiming,
it's not claiming to be a complete solution.
No, we're claiming 20 spots. That's
okay. All right. Thank you for that. Then my question is moot.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Comprehensive plan. I do want to thank the Education Committee, Dr. Solometo, Dr. Trinkle, and all who've participated in the planning process. That's on our agenda for tonight, but I do want to note the thanks there. Student Service Initiative. We have an ongoing initiative, consider how best to provide student services, including our school counselors, school psychologists, social workers, nurses, and others. As you know, we're partnering with Dr. Christopher Liang from Lehigh University, and very soon we're going to be reaching out to our parents and families to have focus groups of our students to get their input into their interactions with the counseling department as we try to, again, improve and engage in communication with our stakeholders. Okay. And then finally, you cannot pick up the news and not read about executive orders and court rulings. So following recent election, there have been a significant changes in the federal administration's interpretation of Title IX, Title VI, and other important statutes. We've been working closely with our solicitor, who has been putting out some helpful information and guidance on these changes, which are very hard to put your finger on, Mrs. Moore. I think, they're a challenge. But by March 10th, we will be prepared to report back to the board about how Southern Lehigh School District is responding to these changes. We've had long conversations about the old Title IX and some of the old interpretations and executive orders, and now things have changed. So it is time for us to make sure, because in the end, we said we always going to respect the civil rights of our students and our teachers all involved. And so it appears that those civil rights may be changing or in flux. And so we have to have a thoughtful approach as to how we address it. And so that will be coming up by March 10th. Okay. And that is all I have. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the acceptance of that donation is the next item
Left?
on our agenda.
Yes.
The superintendent.
Right. Well, that's all I
Yeah.
have for the presentation. I'm going to get back and we could do,
Okay, thank
we
you.
could vote. You want? Let me get back and I'll.
We'll just let you collect your
Yes.
things
Yeah,
and come back to your spot. All right. So that's the end of your presentation. Okay. So would you like me to take the motion to approve the donation?
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Mr. Carney.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer, for the second. All right. Questions or comments on this donation from SLAF? Other than it's great to see. The only question or comment I had, I did understand that some of these are the projects that were funded in the fall, and we're now accepting the donation for those
Correct.
awards. And I believe some of those teachers, do you know if there's resolution? Some of the teachers had problems because they were about innovation and they had tie into technology. And I'm not sure if it had to do with the Infinite Campus situation, but I do know that some of the grants that were granted weren't able to completely be used to fruition because of technological glitches. They'll still have the opportunity to utilize that once.
I'm not aware. I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
If you had a specific one, you could just maybe send it me and I'll find out what happened.
Okay,
But
just so that the
I
opportunity.
thought that they were all paid, but maybe they're not.
Oh, they're all paid. It's just what I think what I'd heard was the money was used to purchase was perhaps it was purchased. It was great. It was work. It just never got tied in for technological reasons. It had nothing to do with on SLEF's part of providing the funds. Absolutely not.
Maybe I'm not aware of it though.
Okay. Well, maybe we can catch up on that sometime later. And I want to be sure that those SLEF funds are able to be utilized regardless of any tech problems. That's it. And thank you very much. I understand it's great. These were the teacher grants are something that were had in the past and then fell away. And it's great to see SLEF funding those again. It's a wonderful opportunity. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right. I believe we have more presentations and updates under curriculum, student, and staff activities, starting with the high school library project. I'll just turn this entire section over to Dr. Trinkle to present as you will. We have the superintendent's presentation, the assistant superintendent presentation now, I guess, right?
I'll start with the library. Just wanted to provide an update based on some curricular components, just to kind of tie this whole thing together. The transformation of the Library Media Center is a vital step in creating the innovative and supportive learning environment. And I think you could see that from the design that was provided 2 weeks ago. Through that renovation, we'll have an improved access to our essential resources, enhance a digital literacy component, inspire creativity, critical research, analytical thinking. But beyond serving the current and future students, this will become a dynamic hub of technology. So instead of a typical presentation where I stand up and highlight all the connections, we actually reached out to current staff members and students to provide a video for you, a promotional video to tie how this Library Media Center could evolve and provide our students, current and upcoming an opportunity to have technology at their fingertips. I did ask Mr. Fluck to help me set it up. He is much more tech savvy than I am. I'm first to admit it. So he is going to key this up. It's not very long. It's 4 minutes or so, but take a look and we can kind of talk about it after.
I imagine in the future I will be a cardiothoracic surgeon, a biologist, a meteorologist, a pediatric speech therapist. I don't know that. A pop star, pediatric physician assistant, a dermatologist, a physician assistant, a neuropsychologist, a film editor. I imagine in the future I'll be a neurosurgeon. Imagining a bright future starts here. And we want a space that can imagine all that we can be. A space that can imagine growing our skills and talents. A space diverse enough to imagine for all students and learning styles. A space that can imagine all of our possibilities. Welcome to the future of learning, the Library Media Center, a dynamic space designed to foster literacy, critical thinking, and digital skills for all students. This is not just a library, it's a hub for exploration, discovery, and creativity. Here, information literacy skills are seamlessly integrated into the curriculum.
I didn't do anything. I want to thank. When tasked with, coming up with the connections for how this could support us curricularly, I thought, who better to hear from than our students? And many of those students that you saw sat on our steering committee and participated in the design process with us. And many thanks to those students who are all listed, one who spoke tonight and provided our update. Lauren Tossi, who, when we arrived at her classroom a very short time ago, really was able to pull this together for us using our own equipment, using our own technology that we currently have. And some of the things that they did, our students did, using high-end, high-level technology to create this video. Not just a video camera. There were other options and things that are well above my ability to understand. But we use the things that we have at our fingertips right now.
And if people like the acting, a lot of them are going to be in the musical. I recognize a lot of theater folks in there.
That is
Just gonna
true.
say,
Those
almost
students,
every single kid.
yes, those students that did participate on the steering committee and may not have wanted to do this, we tapped the shoulder of some experts right in our school to support us in this process, and they crushed it. I can't thank them enough for taking the time. They did this on their own. They came in on a professional development day when no other students were here, when the library was empty, to do this for us, to showcase to you better than I could articulate, quite frankly, the opportunity and the possibilities that this space could provide for us. So it represents a significant step, a potential significant step for us to enhance the types of learning that take place in our schools. I think you could feel how excited they are for a potential project. I know that translates to us sitting on the steering committee too. But it represents that represents the excitement and the enthusiasm I think that we have had throughout this process when we started our meetings.
The best part of it is they weren't acting here. They're invested because they really believe in what the project stands for. And they were part of the development as we were going through the project, which is really awesome. So it's student-centered, student-based, and you can see the benefit that's going to come out of it.
I appreciate the breath of fresh air. Thank you.
Much better than me talking for 15, 20 minutes.
But I should have them come back and present the budget. Probably be more interesting.
Yeah. Right.
So
That's
I just want to publicly thank all of the students and Lauren Tossi. I mean, beyond expectation, I think, when we kind of showed up at her door with an idea, knowing we had an idea, but one that we could not do ourselves, and what an opportunity for our students and staff to showcase the ability that they have, and even more potential given the opportunity to do so in a renovated, up-to-date space.
Thank you.
Sorry, I just also want to say thank you very much. I love the versatility of this space, and certainly the student-centered approach to that. So kudos to everyone involved.
When you talked about the flexible scheduling options that the kids were talking about, they seemed really excited about that. Can you speak more to that?
I think that's such a large topic. I think that given some of the opportunities in the space, there's multiple things that can be happening in the private areas, in the small group rooms, in the open rooms, and that they won't even know that multiple classrooms are in there accessing the space. I think that as this project, or as the usage and understanding of this space evolves in year 1, year 2, and year 3, I think by year 3, we will have a full mastery and use of flexible use of this space. I think it's just, we talked about it. It's kind of like when you open a new phone and you take it out of the box. The minute you take it out of the box, you don't know how to use every single component of your phone. But in 6 months from now, you know more. And in year 2, you know even more, or most. So I think as we look at that space, given some staffing opportunities, I think we'll be able to maximize it with not just scheduling, but usage of the space in partnership with colleagues.
Thanks. Anyone else? Dr. Tringle, I know the next is a voting item that you presented on before the school year calendar. No changes since that last presentation you made, correct?
No.
Okay. Could I have a motion
Motion.
for the school calendar?
Second.
Second, Dr. Wayak. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. On to the draft comprehensive plan. Any updates? Before you have anything to talk about with this, I just want to thank you. And I had the opportunity, along with a few other board members, I think last week, I believe it was, Okay, good. I kind of time's a blur, right? It's the spring, so it's about to be. So I just want to thank Dr. Samedo and Dr. Trinkle and all of the I know one or two faces, but I'm not going to name staff who were on that steering committee because I would fail to mention all of them. So just thank you to the people who are present here and also all the staff who put their time in. And the parents, I see some parents here who participated in that and turned into that Zoom call to get all of that together. And we really appreciate just the updates and the effort that went in to put these planning and these goals together for our comprehensive plan to steer us into the future. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And
This is the 28-day waiting period or public viewing period.
Right.
The full comprehensive plan has been sent out. It's available. It will, after tonight, we'll post it on the website, and hopefully we'll come to vote on the 24th is our voting meeting in March, which will satisfy the public viewing period.
Mhm.
And if there's changes or feedback within that time, we'll certainly bring that back through an update to keep everybody aware. But through the steering committee process, we had a large amount of feedback in that first session, incorporated all of the feedback into the second. I think anybody who participated, it went pretty smoothly and very quickly, to Dr. Salmetto's credit, because we incorporated the feedback at that time. And it was very helpful.
And so just to clarify, this is a motion to approve, not to approve the plan, but to approve its posting for that waiting period, much like a preliminary budget and then the waiting period and then the final budget. So
correct.
Could I have a motion to approve that waiting period, this plan for that waiting period?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Mon.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer. Any other questions or comments?
Just thank you for the work, and I appreciate it was evident that you were looking for input and you incorporated it, and I'm excited about it.
And I would just say that the goals and the objectives here are direct, concise, and attainable, but that doesn't mean that there aren't many other things that the administration and the staff are working on that are in addition to this. So I just want to put that out there. A lot of other things that you're working on beyond these.
That's correct. These are they're components of larger goals we identified through that process to really strategically identify these two priority areas through our steering committee. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, and that's a great point. This is, those who aren't familiar with it, this is for the public too, this is a very formulaic, state required process that requires us to plan for our future. But some of it is incredibly formulaic and it in no way encompasses all of the things that it takes to goal set for a school.
Yeah,
That's
it
a
is
good
in
point.
no way creative.
Right.
at all.
Right. It's very formulaic in that regard. It's a good tool, but there's a lot more going on. Yes, good point. Thank you. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. On to big ideas, math and U. I believe we heard, I know the education committee heard a little bit about this and you touched upon it at the last meeting. Any other updates since then?
None.
Okay, great. Could I have a motion to approve big ideas, math and U for the 25-26 school year?
Motion.
Thank you for the motion.
Second.
Thank you for the second, Ms. Torba. Mr. Carney had the first, Ms. Torba the second. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we have under technology an amended purchase agreement for Apple MacBooks to amend the previously approved. I'm sorry, this is not, okay. There are two different motions on this agenda with regard to Apple, and I was just confused between the two. This is, there are
Do you want me to go through it for
yeah,
you real
please. There are
quick?
two options. This is the one we needed to go through, Mr. Pepe, and there are two options on here. One with a case and one without a case, and then later on, you can, if you want to, you can address from a fiscal standpoint. Because
explain them
later
both to
on,
you right now.
yeah, okay, and then later on it appears again. If you want to touch upon both items 7A and 8F, I guess right now, because there are two Apple items on here, that'd be great. Feel free.
Yeah, they're related. The first one here under technology is amending the purchase agreement that was previously approved at the February 10th meeting, the workshop meeting. And that one added a couple of additional components that were necessary for licensing. And at the same time, there was discussion with or without cases. So this is broken out without cases. Obviously, that's the less money, 1,335,150, and or with cases 1,371,110. So that's the will of the board based on the technology committee's recommendation. So first you need to determine, do you want cases or do you want to just purchase without cases, since any damage is covered under the Apple Care? And then once that decision is made, then that will automatically determine the financing arrangement. The financing arrangement is under finance, and that is two different amounts again. One is inclusive of cases, one is without cases.
So one is the purchase agreement to purchase, and the second is approving just the lease agreement for the formula of how we will be going about purchasing those, correct?
That is correct.
And that's why this first one appears first. All right. So do we have Ms. Torba as the technology chair? Do you turn it over to you for some of the extra information that was provided to the technology committee since then, or how would you like to handle?
Well, I think what we need to look at is which agreement, like Mr. Pepe stated, both are here with cases for those MacBooks and all the licenses, because that needed to be amended, and then the agreement without. And in our last meeting, we did go round about the cases, and I think the original cost was 70 or 65. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
this seems to be about half that. What's that about?
Yeah, when we had a conversation, with a rep, Dr. Mann, myself, and Eric, once I had the opportunity, I asked if they could throw it in at no cost. I tried to get them free. Couldn't get them free.
No
until I got a
dice?
substantial discount on them.
And it was
suddenly
Mr.
it was
Fluck.
dropped
if I could just
50%.
add the quote that we had at the time when we were discussing it at our last meeting, the Apple rep did apologize, but he quoted it on a single basis. So we were buying cases as singletons. Had we approved it that night, we would have paid about $65 or $61 per case. But by virtue of us being able to go back to Apple and engage in that conversation, the cases are now roughly $35 as opposed to $61, because we had that opportunity to, kind of push the issue.
I have a question for the board. We all have devices. How many of you stick them in a case before you put them in your bag?
I stick mine in a foam sleeve.
Well, I guess this is a case that's going to go in the externally and then protect the sides in case it's dropped. Correct. This is not like a sleeve. Correct.
Correct. This is a Mr. Fluck.
It's
could you-
attached case.
Could you, Mr. Fluck, could you either mic'd or, and I hate to call on you, but could you? Oh, okay. It's a hard case, right? Ms. Boucher just held up. Thank you for your visual aid, Ms. Boucher. Okay. It's a hard case that stays on. All
Do
right.
we get additional resale value with them being protected? Is that right?
Yes.
We do?
Yes. The technology committee discussed that as one of the factors. It kind of preserves the how something is scratched or what the condition it's in, definitely affects the resale.
So what are the different levels of value for buyback that we have for them? Is that on the purchase order here?
The guaranteed buyback
Yeah.
is
It's 4 years, right?
But the guarantee, and I don't want to
Mhm.
speak out of turn. The technology committee discussed that the buyback is it's a flat guaranteed rate is what you're seeing on there. However, that is the Apple guarantee, and we discussed that there are third parties who will purchase back the devices, and that is likely more, but Apple at least guarantees that baseline, and third party purchases are based upon the condition.
Do we have a third party estimate or no? I'm just curious.
I mean, 4 years
Since
from now.
it's $30,000 for the covers, if
The
just
other
to look
ki-
at the return on investment, that's
Yeah,
all I was wondering.
Kids have cases now in the high school. Many kids have the hard cases.
I just wanted to clarify. So it's $225 to $224.75 as a 5-pack. So that's $45 a piece.
But I believe it's 35 because Mr.
You're correct.
In the phone call, Mr. Fluck had I'm going to say kudos to Mr. Fluck for having the relationship with the Apple rep. He's gone back and forth, and he brought him in to talk to the teachers. And I understand the phone call that Mr. Pepe is talking about. Not only was it's a 45, but I believe Mr. Fluck gave an update where there were others thrown in for free. Mr. Fluck, Mr. Pepe? So I believe the overall cost is $35.
That's not what we're voting on is 160 at 225. Doing math, that's $45 a piece.
Correct. Except we're only purchasing that number. I believe there are 200 being thrown in for free, which we're not making an agreement to
Paying
purchase.
an extra 40.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
So it brings the overall, if you divide, that's the explanation.
And the issue about cases, and it very well may be, it's really the pleasure of the board what it decides. But if we were to make an argument against cases, it would be that in year one, we've purchased Apple Care, which means that students can break a computer twice per year and get a replacement. And so we will not be cashing in, so to speak, on the resale value until year 4 of the agreement, right? And so with respect to Apple, and this was actually a suggestion that Apple made, was that should in year 4 computers be showing a high degree of wear, we would actually send them back with respect to Apple Care to receive a replacement that would then potentially have a higher resale value. When we looked at Apple's resale value, that is the upper end of the reimbursement at $200. There is no higher, and they do say that they are very flexible with respect to the quality of the device when it comes back. And clearly, we could probably get a higher value. The value of the case, which is rated at not breakage at 2 feet, a drop of 2 feet, which isn't all that much, but it's real. The value of the case really, in our estimation, would be if it prevents the third breakage during the course of the year, less the resale value. Because on the third breakage, then we have to actually pay for the replacement of the device that is outside of Apple Care. And so, one option the board has is we don't think there's a lot of students who are breaking more than the device twice per year. There may be some, and some of those breakages may not be stopped by the case. But another option the board might consider is if we were to postpone the case purchase, gather data on the rate of breakage during the year. To the extent that we see there's a high rate of the third breakage point, then that might speak to a greater value. To the counter argument to that is, rather than buying 35,000 in cases, maybe we buy $35,000 in M2s for MacBooks, and then we have spares in place,
floaters, that's
and then
what
we'd
I was
have
going to
a
ask.
greater inventory of floaters, because if we have a floater, if that's the primary concern, right, then we would have an inventory of floaters where we can hand it to them right away, because while the case is going to cause some, is going to mitigate breakage to some degree, it certainly is not going to, 3 feet or 4 feet up or whatever it is that happens. And so if we really say we need to get something in the hands of our students right away, perhaps an alternative is to say, rather than 35,000 in cases, buy $35,000 in the lowest level MacBook and use that as a floater.
You'd have over 24 floaters.
And that would get enhanced. So, Mrs. Gaiman, your point is a very good one, but there are some alternate thoughts as to how we might proceed.
I have a question about these are MacBook Airs, right?
Correct.
And Apple's providing the cases.
It is a third-party vendor that we purchase through Apple. So these are Apple endorsed, but they're not Apple manufactured.
Well, I don't know. We all have phones, and I don't think my case for my phone was really cheap. It was like $5. But I could have gone through Apple and paid $40, right? So maybe there's some other aftermarket or other third-party vendors that are less expensive.
This is already a third party. This
I know,
isn't
but
through
maybe there
Apple.
are others. Do we shop it around? Can we get some for $10?
Well, we had charged the Apple rep with trying to get us the best deal or the cheapest, least expensive, and this is what we got in the proposal. The other thing to remind the board is the timeline of ordering the equipment. You really need to make a decision tonight so that we can get the equipment in time for them to prepare it over the summer for the school year. That was one of the other concerns.
Forward with the M3s, Mr. Pepe provided that. I don't know which document it is, with the cases to give that additional layer of protection to mitigate those risks.
That was the yeah, that's that. So that's the recommendation of the committee. Because this is phrased it's 7A. We're on 7A. And on the printout, because Ms. Torba, would you like to make a motion? And because the tech committee recommends one, we have to start this off somehow. We can't just vote on this.
I
We
am
have to
making
make
a
a motion.
motion for the agreement with cases.
I have a motion for with cases. Do I have a second for the motion with cases to get the ball rolling?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Any other discussion?
I'm happy to prove it without cases, but I'm not going to pay that kind of money for a case.
Oh, and we have a motion and a second. So any other discussion? Thank you, Ms. Reinhardt. All right, I'll ask for the motion and a second with cases. All those in favor, aye. Aye.
Reluctantly, I think we should get 35 floaters, and then we still have 8 chances for each computer, but I'm giving up the fight.
Yeah, I hear you, Steve. I really do. All right. Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
All right. I heard 3 nays and I heard 6 yays. So motion carries. I heard, I'll just go around the table for the sake of the secretary. Ms. Reinhardt was a no. Dr. Wayek was a no. Mr. Mall was a yes. Mr. Carney was a yes. Ms. King was a no. I was a yes. Mr. Boyer was a yes. Ms. Torba was a yes. And Ms. Cruz was a yes. Thank you. You have what you need, Madam Secretary.
So just for clarification, the motion will read for the minutes to approve at $1,371,110 with cases as attached.
Correct.
And then that will automatically help define the other resolution under finance.
So let's take that now. Could I have a motion to approve item 8A, the 4-year Apple lease for with
So moved.
cases? Thank you, Ms.
Second.
Dr. Wayek. Thank you, Ms. Reinhardt. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. All right, back up to 8A. Can I take? Does anyone object? If I
So that
take
was 8F.
Yes. So motion carries for 8F unanimously. That was 8F, correct. Could I have a motion for items 8A through, I don't know if I can take all those together because of their proposed budgets. Does anyone know, can I get a legal weighing in because some of these are approved in the LCTI budget? I think I have to.
I have the presentation on the LCTI.
Okay, so can
and then you're going to take the resolution after that.
Great. So can I
Move
have
everything else?
8A and B, other than 8A, B, and E? Can I have a motion to approve items 8A, B,
So moved.
and E?
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Mr. Wack. Thank you for the second, Mr. Boyer. That's approval of the bills list, treasurer's report, and release agreement for the claim. All those, any questions or comments on those? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the floor is yours for the presentation of the LCTI budget. Thank you, Mr. Pepe.
Okay, I think that's working. All right, so thank you. Tonight should go pretty quick here. This is just an update on where we are, and this is pretty standard for where we expect it to be. And it starts with the budget timeline calendar. And as you look up here, there's two things happening. There's board actions on the top, administrative activities below. And we've already concluded November all the way up to January, and here we are tonight, February, with the LCTI. So if you remember in January, we looked at the preliminary draft budget of L-Tri-C and IU-21. And then next month, there is no board action needed. So we're going to be finalizing the overall draft budget and review revenue projections. And by April, we will be coming back with the proposed draft for approval. And then, of course, that ends up being approved in May. And then again, the requisite waiting time before the final action where it's adopted in June. Same cycle we had last year, same basic cycle that we've been on for the last couple of years. So tonight, LCTI's budget is the one we're going to be focusing on. The overall impact for our budget is $1,657,371. So it is a significant partner. It was really nice to hear the students open tonight talking about the importance of that relationship. And I know we have two members of our board, Mr. Carney, Mr. Maughan, that sit on the LCTI board along with our superintendent. Their portion is up 2.6%, or I'm sorry, our portion is up 2.6% this year. So when you look at the LCTI's overall budget, their overall budget is 33.5 million, which is up 4.8%. The total general operating budget is the big portion of it, which is 33.4, and the combined district contribution amount is 24,640,000. So then we'll see where we fit into that. So it basically breaks down into three areas. The operating budget, which is the large part, 1.3 mil, and that is up 3.1% compared to last year. Capital cost district share is pretty much steady, and that's about 41,540, and that's where we contribute and to projects that they have going on. The total debt service, that one again it's up $996, so it's really stable. It was down slightly for the capital cost this year, and it's up marginal on the debt service. Nothing really big deal going on there. Instead of just giving information in a vacuum, I wanted to try and give a little bit of comparables, and that is compared to 2.6, was up 4.8 in fiscal year 25 and 11% fiscal year 24. So as you can see, it was a larger increase in a prior year. So when you look at the proportional share, we look down the list from all the districts that partner with the LCTI. And what we're really concerned about is our portion here, which is Southern Lehigh. This is the average daily membership. And that's important because I always look at trend. And what this tells me is that the trend has been going up. We have more students taking advantage of program at LCTI. And that is indicative of any increases. So the increases, if you have less students utilizing the services, you're going to go down. If you have more students utilizing the services, your costs are going to go up. So that indicates 7.2% increase over the prior 5-year average. And as I said, the takeaway, more students are utilizing services at LCTI. Just to make it a little easier to see, I graphed it out to show the trend line and to show the number of students from each fiscal year. And as you can see, just by the graph, definitely up. So then the next thing is the capital cost calculation. There's no big news here. It's, like I said, pretty much standard. And we go to the debt service again. I really don't want to waste time on it because there's nothing really big deal going on. It's pretty steady. I looked at the academic center and I thought that was interesting because that's a program within the program. The difference between the academic center is these are students who are full-time at LCTI versus the traditional student who is here for the first half of the day and then finishes out their experience at LCTI. Now, what I found really interesting, and again, you guys know and do a good job of reporting, is there's 45 programs. And some of the top programs are cosmetology, health and medical science, advertising, design, criminal justice, auto, and they all come with industry recognized credentials, bona fide, certified, and recognized. That's actually a chapter out of one of my books, Why Professional Certs Matter. And I was really excited to see that LCTI has done a good job of making the experience worth it for the student going beyond. When you look here, again, it shows trend up, and we have more students taking advantage of this portion of the program as well. Then my favorite slide is just looking at the breakdown of their overall budget, and it's pretty consistent with what you would expect in a budget. Between salaries and benefits, that commands about 70% of their overall budget, and it's pretty standard for or pretty unchanged from where they have been in the last 4 years since I've been looking at this. The debt service I already showed you, and the supplies and equipment, they round out the top 4 large expenses there. I found nothing of concern when I'm looking through it. And last year I went a little deeper and didn't just look at their budget, I looked at their audit. And the audit pretty much bared out what I was presenting from our view as a partner. So the total increase is 1.5. Most of that is in salaries and benefits. And that's pretty much what I have. And I think at this point, unless you have any questions about it, or if you guys wanted to add anything as the reps.
I have a quick question. On the graph, Academic Center, and on the previous graph where you've highlighted the 5-year block.
Right.
The year prior to that, 1920, has a 12. What is, and versus 4 the next year, 4.4. And
Yeah.
the same thing happens on the previous
Yeah, and that's saying
grid.
12 students versus 4 students.
It went down that much in 1 year.
Yeah,
the
and I
same-
don't know if it had anything to do with COVID at
Oh,
that time.
okay. So that's same thing with 1920, 20. Okay.
Yep, that's what I would think the 2021 was COVID year. Good question.
I just wanted to make a comment about future to keep in mind for planning. The LCTI has been putting forward an initiative for 5th grade tours at LCTI, and these things inherently are fostering higher attendance. And with that higher attendance, we're going to have a higher population going there, probably in probabilities. And then also once they start having capacity issues, which I've been bringing up at the JOC meetings, there are going to be additional capital investments, most likely because of this additional, let's say, recruitment strategy. So just something to keep in mind over time here. It's bound to be going up in population and up in capital expenditures. That's it.
I was trying to find out how many certificates. I know I did mention it at one of our meetings. It's an incredibly high amount. I purposely wore my LCTI shirt tonight. It's CTE Career and Tech Ed Month, so I'm glad we're having this presentation. Last year, it was unanimous. All board members, all sending board members approved this, and they've always offered to come out and do this presentation, but you do it so well. So thank you so much.
Thanks. So I think at this time, I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent, and he's going to talk about personnel.
So we're not voting on the LCTI budget. We're finishing up the budget update at this point, correct?
You can vote on it if you want, because it won't impact.
Right. Would you like us to vote on that first, Dr. Mann, before you move on?
It's in my presentation, independent.
Independent of,
So
okay,
you don't
great.
have to worry about
So then let's wrap up LCTI then, shall we? Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Mond.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. I'm going to give it to Mr. Kearney since there's our rep. Thanks. All right, Mr. Kearney for the second. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Pepe. Any other questions or comments? Appreciate you folks representing us, Mr. Kearney and Mr. Mond.
Our intermediate students are going this Friday, as a matter of fact.
Oh, okay. They're taking
To
that field
visit,
trip this
yeah,
Friday.
yeah.
Okay, great. Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. All right, Dr. Mann, over to you. Thank you. Being projected on the screen is just a little more legible in front of us.
Doesn't
Okay.
project that well on the screen, so I thought I would, you had the choice to look at the screen. So over the course of the past multiple weeks, we have been talking about, how we best approach the budget process with respect to staffing. The process we normally use was kind of tighter. Here we have.
Do you mind just use your microphone? Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. So the process, we really had less input in prior years, and one of our goals this year is to provide the maximum amount of input from a broad range of constituents. And what I'll tell you is this presentation tonight is intended to begin conversation, not to end it or say this is a final recommendation, but it was suggested that we put together a list of potential additions of staff to try to, Mr. Boyer, I think, suggested, hey, we kind of maybe try to prioritize these, although, different people will view different positions with a different degree of priority, but we tried to generally do that. And my thought was that we would talk about the possibility of adding some of these positions to engage in discussion tonight or further discussion at the committee level as we move toward maybe getting some, firm ideas together for Mr. Pepe's budget, maybe in later March. So on this sheet, we categorize positions as required, level 1, level 2, and then we have level 2 or 3, and we have a few that additional information is required. And so if we look at the top list of required positions, nearly all of those are related to special education. And I label them as required, as distinct from other very important positions, in that there are statutory obligations with respect to IDA and caseload that make it very difficult for us to not fill these jobs. Right now, we're monitoring numbers very closely. Numbers of special ed kids have been tracking upward, and significantly, particularly when we look to places like early intervention, the need profile of some of our students is also increasing substantially. So it looks like we're going to be looking for a special education teacher at the intermediate school, a special education teacher at the high school, and then possibly now a special education teacher K through 3. And then we have this listed, and we're not going to have to make final decisions on this until we have a sense of numbers. But this is an area where we have very little flexibility, nor would we want flexibility, because these are very important positions to meet the needs of students who very much need us the most. So shall we pause on the required positions for any questions before we move on?
I know that I believe it's the 3rd grade year in the elementary schools of the bubble year. Is that part of the reason for the increased need at the IS as those students move in?
No, I don't think it's the bubble per se. Okay. If you look at row 4, we are moving people with respect to those bubble years, but that's really not a cost, because as enrollment will go down at the elementary school, it'll go up at the intermediate school, so that'll just kind of be a one-off.
In addition to the bubble, then.
Right, and this is addition to the bubble, and to the extent that we can adjust for changes in student size throughout the district in all cases, or student needs, we would kind of do that internally as we were able to.
Thank you, Dr. Mann.
Okay, thank you.
I just had a quick question
Sure.
about those. One of the positions had an asterisk next to it. Special education speech required with an asterisk. Could you explain the
Yes, we are.
asterisk?
If the numbers go where we believe they're heading, it will be absolutely required, but we're monitoring numbers, so we're not prepared to say that right now we need this position.
Okay.
But we in all likelihood will need it, but our numbers, we're monitoring them very closely.
And just to restate my understanding, the required designation on here is required by state law for caseload, right? Not required so we can execute a certain programmatic or an initiative or curricular. This is just straight up the caseload requirements of the state, the law or PDE requirements say you must have this.
Right. You must have it, or we would be creating schedules that would just be unmanageable for running teachers from one building. So if we were left to have to, so in answer to your question, yes, Mrs. Gaiman, it is a requirement that we're responding to? Is it conceivable that we would run someone from 4 buildings to try to cut down? Like, we would have to do it is required, or potentially we could squeeze it out in asking people to do things that were just unreasonable.
Okay.
as
So,
far
but
as
this is
managing.
basically caseload driven.
It is basically caseload driven. That is correct.
Okay.
Largely, even beyond basically, almost exclusively caseload driven.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying required. Yeah.
Before we get in, well, we are getting in the nitty gritty, but the process that you talked about as far as stakeholders. So like you said, like Liberty Bell custodian might have a different need than somebody at the ad building and staff. So when you put this together, I'm just wondering, like, staff priorities are melded in. How did you go about this?
How'd you go about creating this, and what feedback?
The different priorities that people have.
Yeah.
And so, what I'll again say, this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end. So we intend to have broader input, but this was a survey of our administrative needs, talking to all of our principals and directors. And I think that very much reflects input that they have received from their buildings, right? But from staff. And so, and we obviously hear all kinds of feedback all the time. And so once we have this in place and we have input from the board and administration, we certainly could expand that conversation as we continue this review.
Okay, great. That's what we want to hear as a board. So what you're saying is the principals surveyed their staff and their building needs, and then they reported to you what their building needs were, and that's how this was created from that feedback. That's great.
Yes, that's largely the case.
That's
And
okay.
in
If
fact,
that's what
I
happened,
had
that's exactly
personal
what we want to
meetings-
see as a board.
I had personal meetings along with Dr. Trinkle. We're in taking notes and talking about this. And then we actually presented this final form in a district administration meeting. And you'll actually see there's a few additions from input from our people on this.
Oh, great. And when was there enough time for feedback? Like, this was presented even after they gave this feedback and this was created, it was presented again, the opportunity for feedback. I just want to say thanks. That's exactly what the board has been asking for. Thank you for that. And they had the opportunity to give feedback, and then you're bringing it to us. That's
Right.
okay. And this is still a starting point. We understand we have to address it from a budgetary standpoint.
Like, for example, if you scroll down I think it was Dr. Trinkle maybe who added the purple, I noticed late, in row 14, like there was just comments and stuff that were put in over the course of time. And we anticipate this to be like a living document.
Okay.
And,
I'm sorry,
and
row
we look
14.
like,
they're not numbered, but that's my,
on the
which
sheet.
one is row 14?
Like if you look up on the screen there,
Oh.
like you see someone decided they were going to use purple in a thing. Okay. All right. Okay.
Oh, but that was the additional input
but
that
somebody, yeah, we
administrators
shared this.
provided.
Everybody has this, and
Okay.
everybody can edit it.
I don't care about the
and then-
color.
And then so that's
So
it, right?
if people are seeing this and they felt like their voice wasn't heard, there will be opportunity. Is there future meetings set, or they come here, or the ed committee? Like,
Well,
Yeah,
and
what's the next step? That's
and
a great question.
That's actually my question to the board, right?
Okay.
What do we view as the best process to utilize, whether it's the full board, whether we go back to committees?
I mean, we'll talk about. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So all that, this is the beginning of a conversation.
We'll talk about it at ed committee, but at the same time, it's it's after a work day, and maybe that's not the best time to be asking teachers to come to a long meeting. They're certainly invited, and because we will be talking about. Yeah,
I would be very
So I'm-
surprised. I know I see Mrs. Boucher here, and after this meeting, I would fully intend to share with her this, and she will come in, and she has not been shy, I say to her credit, in offering her thoughts on various positions. And I don't think this is, and I could be easily mistaken, but I don't think this is far out of alignment with, generally what people, now we could certainly debate over, option level 1, level 2, that kind of thing. But I think this pretty much captures it. And I know that I will be told if it doesn't by others.
well, my suggestion, and maybe it was listened to. I said, please don't do a green light, yellow, red as far as the ranking, because I didn't want anything in red to
Right.
just be ruled
Right.
out. I didn't want it to
Right.
be like a stop sign. color.
No,
So
no.
thank you for the levels.
Right. And yeah, and I think anything on this sheet, a very reasonable case could be made, and someone might find something that they want to add to this sheet, right? And now, some things on this sheet are more imperative than others, right? And so we just got done talking about the most imperative things at the top, right?
And Mr. Carney, I think kind of where you're heading, I've already taken this information and put it into my own spreadsheet for budgetary calculations. And it's really important that the superintendent continue to dialogue what's level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. To me, level 1 is in the budget. Everything else is not in the budget. So right now, for instance, as it's categorized up here, the level 1s, if they were to go into the budget, that would be $468,000 all in. That would represent close to 1% on the millage rate. So that way I can calculate where are we between 0 and 4. And if everything else is equal, just in this, it's, it would like take the millage from 17 and a quarter to 1742, or a 16-cent increase on the millage if we decided to increase. Okay. So as those numbers go up and or down, 0 is 0. And whatever the end total is, that's where I'm looking at. And that will continue to go into the budget update
Right.
as we move forward.
And I have intentionally avoided the T word here in this, the tax word, right? Because I do not think that we need to say, well, for every dollar we add in position, we have to calculate the percent increase in a mill, because we also have to look at our actual results over previous years. And it is conceivable, and I think likely, that we will be able to absorb some of these things into the budget because we have been actually running surpluses. So while an expense is an expense, it's a dollar is spent, but it is not necessarily a one-to-one connection to a mill. And Mr. Pepe and I will be certainly working on that as we kind of fine-tune these numbers as to what really we're pushing forward with as far as recommendations.
And Mr. Pepe, thank you for that clarification of what you consider to be in and out of the budget at this point in time. And you referred to level 1 or tier 1, does that, they're almost 4.
Right now, none of them are in the budget.
I was just going to say there are almost 4 levels on this chart. There's the R, level R, and then level 1, 2, and 3. So there are 4.
And more information.
Right. But so when Mr. Pepe was saying which of these are included currently in your budget, is it level R or level 1, 2, 3?
No, at this point, none of them are.
Nothing is.
However,
I got you.
That's where the discussions will start, and the superintendent will inform me at the end what's going in or not.
Okay. So none of these are currently.
Right.
Thank you.
Dr. May,
Yeah.
just before, I think I heard you, but I just wanted to make sure. I know this list is a starting point, but it did come from our building administrators, that this is a result of what our building administrators are seeing in the needs in their buildings. Was that correct?
First, it comes from the superintendent. To be clear, this spreadsheet
Starts
and
from
the
you
things
and then goes to
comes
administrators.
from, no, actually, this presentation is from the superintendent to the board. And I control all the positions on here. And I am not saying, well, you put it on here, you get to put it.
Oh, no.
What I'm
no.
saying to you is that we have had an excellent ongoing process that involves our building administrators, actually, as we always do. This is far more, public and discussion, which is really good, right? But this reflects the needs as our administrators perceive them in the building. And to the extent it doesn't, that's my fault. But I really do believe that this is reflected. Now, if you asked any administrator, could I have this, that, or another one, and can we do that? Right? Yeah, that is absolutely the case. But this is, from my perspective, permissive. But that's my fault because that's a different perspective I bring. But this is a permissive accounting of potential to add staff. And yet, at the same time, everything on here, a good case could be made for it.
I have a question, or maybe just clarify for me. Out of all of these are all new positions. They don't currently exist. So out of the positions you've listed, 6 of them are IT related. 6 new IT related positions. Is that correct?
I thought you were going to say special ed there. I see.
Turn it over.
Could you list those for us, Mary Joy?
I sure can. So let's see, we have a media specialist. We have,
That's a new word for a librarian.
it's IT related. We've got a instructional technology administrator. We have 3 instructional technology coaches. We will have an additional IT technician, and I think that makes 6. That's a lot of IT add-ons for 1 year of budgeting. And I'm not saying they're not needed. I know we'd like to restore some stuff, but perhaps we need a process first rather than having this an open forum here. I know Mike wanted to start a process for discussion, and I would suggest he go back and talk with the union representatives, talk again with the staff, and maybe go to the education committee to actually walk this through. And then maybe come up, have another board meeting, a workshop where we carve out 15 minutes and each of us has an option to give input. Otherwise, we're going to spin this around and around for hours on end, and it's already almost 9:30.
Right. I could, when you count and look and say technology, so Dr. Mahan did task, technology committee might have been the first committee where we did walk through, and there were 2 positions that technology came forth with, 2 positions, not those 6. Education committee, it was on the agenda. There wasn't a whole lot of discussion. I get we're building a brand new library. There should be someone in there. We heard it's student centric, what that transformative environment. But tech coaches, that those are more curriculum, educational. So I'm just reiterating there's 2 tech positions that were workshopped through the tech committee per Dr. Mann's request to workshop through a committee and then bring it to the full.
And for education committee, we already did start talking about this. As a matter of fact, it was Mr. Boyd's suggestion, I think, that said, could you kind of give us a ranking of priority? And we briefly talked about it at the last meeting, but we're definitely intending to talk about it on Monday.
So it is significant. It's a $1.6 million annual increase. That's annualized, correct, Mr. Pepe? So that carries
is
year over
correct.
year over year.
And again, I'm very, I mean, that's a thoughtful process. There may be others, but the one point I do wish to make before I, we'll go as long as anyone would care to have me go, but I do want to say I've identified one level 1 position, right? And I've distinguished between required and level 1 is that, we do not violate a statute if we don't have level 1, but we really need level 1. And that goes back to the discussion we had earlier today, to bring in an individual who has specific capacity in student information systems so that, frankly, the superintendent is not doing technical stuff, right? Or our technology director, who is new to this, who comes from industry and brings a skill set from industry that's very relevant, but does not have student information system training or experience. And so when we look at needs within the district, and again, my hope is that over time, the amount of energy and focus that this administrator will be spending on the Infinite Campus or whatever student information system we have would diminish. And so we would put in alternatives for them to move forward with other initiatives. But by and large, we are looking for someone who has specific capacity in student information systems as an administrator. And we had an equivalent position like this, an instructional technology director, early in my tenure here. And this would actually be a restoration of a position that's cut, albeit under, a different description.
It looks like it's kind of like almost a split position. It seems like part of it is on the student information system and the other piece of this would be instructional initiatives. Is that a normal skill set to see those 2 things combined, or would this be kind of a unique position compared to other districts?
The position itself, it will be focused on, its core focus will be on student information system and related reporting items like PIMS and other other associated areas, right? I would love to see this person get everything to a position where we could look to expand their duties. And I put down some potential areas where that could expand from a hybrid point of view. So I do think, Ms. Cruz, to your point, this is a hybrid position, and maybe it's a stretch to consider that it would expand beyond technical. But I just threw that out there, perhaps aspirationally, because we would hope that this would be able to expand to things beyond student information systems.
My only thing would be is if we know that they're required, what are we waiting on?
Yeah, and I was going to raise that point. The special education hires will be required for next year, right? So, and once we get rolling on, if we start rolling on April 1st to fill our positions for the fall, that's the ideal time as far as us. However, Mr. Boyer, to your point, right? If there was one position on this sheet where we may wish, to seek moving forward quickly, it would be the one I have under option 1. And thank you for mentioning that was on my list to mention.
That's a good question. So we are in compliance with special ed caseloads currently. I'm sorry, the microphone, you said yes, we are. I'm just asking.
I can do a report, Mrs. Gaiman, and
No,
come
no,
back
no.
to confirm, but it is my understanding at the moment, with the knowledge I have, that yes, we are in compliance.
Okay, thank you. That was just speaking to Mr. Boyer's question about required, if it's required at the moment or next year, and you clarified that. So just wanted to make sure. All right, any other questions about this? All right, thank you for that presentation. We have already voted on everything under item business finance that we need to. There's no need to vote on that report out item. Moving on to support services. Could I take items 9A and B together? The Liberty Bell school roof replacement, the change order, which we all know Mr. Pepe loves. And
That's a credit. So moved.
Second.
we love this. And also, while we second it, the McCure replacement of the kitchen makeup air unit. Perfect. You got a second for both of those items. Great. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Could I take items 10A through C together? That's the human resources report, the settlement agreements, and the second reading of policy.
Could you please break them up individually, please?
Certainly. All three separately?
Yes, please.
Okay. Could I have a motion to approve item 10A, the human resources report? Thank you, Mr. Carney.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer, for the second. Any questions or comments?
I do have a question. I saw in there that there's about $5,000 towards paying musicians. Do we have any information on that? And I'm curious why we don't have our very talented students.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to recall, I think I know the answer to this, and maybe I could be helped, but the musicians are professional individuals who come in, I think, to play in the pit. And I'm not sure that our current musician, our student music, ideally, obviously, we want to utilize student talent as much as we possibly can. But I am not certain that we have students who wish to do this as opposed to other things within the play. But I
think you have some folks willing to clarify with extra information.
I could be wrong.
Dr. Trinkle.
The students who also would be able to play the instruments and the music are also in the play. So
okay.
there is overlap where, and we don't have the capacity to do anything other than kind of contract out to get the music for the
Are you
play.
absolutely certain about that? Because historically, the students have played in the pit and others have performed in the play. So I know there's a trend to get it better and better and hire professionals, but I'm not sure that's really the meaning of our mission to engage students in educational activities.
I couldn't
like
agree more.
music.
I couldn't agree more that if we had the capacity for our students, that is how that determination was made for this year.
I will say that, and I don't know the details of the mix of musicians, but I do know that this is standard practice from when we had a pit. Students would play in the pit, and it would be a mix of students and with a few adults scattered in, just because I know from attending the musicals that I would know adults who were playing. So, for instance, if you need an oboe, but the oboe player is the lead in the play, you get an adult who plays the oboe in the community. So, historically speaking, and Mr. Ware is a great resource for this. I'm sure if you email him, he'd be happy to explain because he's currently the musical director for the musical. But in the past, I know there has been a mix of adults and students in the pit. I don't know what that mix is this year, but I do know in the past this is standard. Mr. Carney.
I've gone to Allen where they have more people to draw on, and I have a buddy of mine that plays for the Allen musicals, so and 2 schools musicals, and I know there is we won't be eligible for the Freddies for the orchestra. They give an award, but because we have professionals doing it, they won't be eligible for that. But it's a common practice.
It's a common or a certain percentage, and whatever that percentage is, whatever the eligibility. But you're right, Mr. Carney.
And my guess is they do look I'm hoping they look each year and see if they're going to how big a pit band they need, what kind of instruments, who they have available. I'd hope that they do that, instead of just automatically hiring.
Yeah, I guess I had made a point last meeting that I felt very uncomfortable voting for HR action items when our HR director is not present. I think it's important for our community to maybe understand why our HR director is not present on a regular basis. And, these are good questions that I'm sure he would potentially have the answers to. I think I suggested last meeting not to have it on the agenda when, our HR director is not present for public comment and for public questions.
Does that extend to other employees such as like principals? Are you asking the board to hold items for when the administrator in charge of that building or that handbook or that whatever? Are you making a general statement for all things?
I think that's a great idea. Absolutely.
Okay,
I think that's a great idea. Sure. So I have questions as a board member
Mhm.
about HR, which is why I wanted these separate, because I have questions, and I think it's important. I had questions in executive session, and Dr. Little was not available there to answer these questions that I have. So I just cannot vote on these items or certain items where I still can continue to have questions.
All right. And so are you proposing that we do the same for other departments? That's just a general suggestion for the board for all
Yeah,
departments?
I think that's would be a great practice.
Okay. For
If we
principals as
have,
well. We'll consider. I hate to
I mean, I
hold
don't know.
people out.
We don't have very, very many questions specifically for principals, but if they're giving a presentation, I would hope that they'd be present.
Well, they're typically here anyway, right? Principals are typically here.
Yeah. And up until recently, our HR director was typically here as well.
The HR report, like many of the fiscal reports, are on the agenda every meeting. So I think those key people need to be present. As far as other administration, if they're not making a presentation, it doesn't seem that they would need to be here. But if they're making a presentation, there's something we need to vote on. It's helpful. That's all.
I believe there wasn't an HR report on the agenda for about 2.5 months. And in January, when there was the first HR report in over 2.5 months, the HR director was here for that.
HR director is also, from what I understand, leading the charge with regard to the revision of policies and procedures. Yes?
Leading the charge? I mean,
I
there's
think that HR director on the administrative paid side, not the board side, is responsible for the policies and procedures that are getting presented to the board for voting.
That's a committee-driven item, but he is the chair of the policy. He is the administrator that is assigned to.
I think
conduct
he's doing the
business.
work. Okay, I don't think the committee's
I'm
doing
not
the
sure.
work.
I'm
He's
trying to
paid do
understand what
that.
your question is.
Well, I think, if we're voting on policies and procedures, I think the key paid employee should be here to answer any questions and listen to our comments.
So you're reiterating Mr. Ware's point. Is what
I'm
hearing.
expanding on Mr. Wayach's point.
Okay, thank you. Anything? All right. We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments on 10A? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Opposed.
Motion carries with Mr. Wayak and Ms. Reinhardt's opposed. Moving on to 10B, settlement agreement. Could I have a motion?
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Mr. Carney, and the second, Mr. Boyer. It's an employee matter. We're really not going to talk about this.
No, but I think we can talk about, again, having questions in executive session where our HR director was not present to answer questions that I think were very appropriate, that actually most members of the committee, not just one particular faction, had questions about, and we didn't have a complete picture. So again, I cannot vote on this item. I could not approve this item. I continue to have questions.
All
I
those in,
agree with Dr. Wayak and Ms. Reinhardt. I just would vote according to moving forward the public's business and take note of the fact that there's probably a need for some administrative participation in that at some point.
all right. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
Motion carries with Dr. Wayak and Ms. Reinhardt's opposed. 10C, policy second reading. Could I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Carney.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Wayak. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, sorry. I said questions or comments, but I didn't see any. Did you have one, Mr. Carney? I'll go back. Can you hold your mic in? I went too
Did
quickly.
Dr. Wayak say he had questions about some of the policies? So
Yes, you're right. Go ahead.
I didn't know if you had specifics that maybe you
No,
wanna
I
bring up.
didn't. No, I didn't say I had any questions regarding these policies that are on here.
Okay.
I did not say that.
Thanks for giving him the opportunity, Mr. Carney. No, okay. So no questions or comments. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to other business, we have a nominee for the CLIU 21 Board of Directors. I currently serve as on the Board of Directors. However, my term is up and the board must nominate a representative to be placed on the 2025 ballot for the Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit for the term. So we nominate the individual to represent us and then everyone
I'll
will vote.
nominate Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. No one else wants to make the drive to Shanksville. No, I would like to serve again. I welcome the opportunity. I don't mind driving to Shanksville. Do I have a
Second.
thank you, Dr. Wayak? Any other nominations? Seeing none, I'm going to close the floor to nominations.
Can we have questions?
Yes, I was just going to close the floor to nominations because we only have one nomination. So motion to close the floor to nominations. Thank you, Ms. Randers, for the motion. Thank you, Mr. Carney, for second. All those in favor of closing the floor to nominations? Aye. Yes, now we only have one nominee, so it's a foregone conclusion. But yes, go ahead, Ms. Reinhardt, if you would like to comment.
How many years have you served?
On the IU board,
Yes.
one complete term, and I cannot recall the partial term I filled when Ms. Parsons vacated the position.
How many years is that?
Well, let's see. It is I just don't recall. So it's a 3-year term. So I would say I have probably served 3 and 4 when Ms. Parsons departed. Shortly before she departed the board, I took over when she became the LCTI rep. So I would have to, honestly, I'd have to look that up. So it was 4-ish, 4.5. 4. Any other, care to clarify why you ask, or?
I think it's really important that we look at, as a board, at term limits for a variety of positions, and as we represent the district outside of Southern Lehigh on various committees, whether it's LCTI or the intermediate unit. It's just a suggestion for the future. We don't need to go into it now, but term limits I think are really healthy.
I'm assuming that if somebody else wanted the position, they could have just tried to do that.
I'm not speaking to that. I'm talking about term limits. It's an extension of the discussion.
But
We're
thank
talking
you.
about the IU thing.
But
So
thank you,
it's-
Tim.
yeah,
Nobody else had interest of
yeah,
it. I don't
nobody
know
else
why
wanted
we're
it.
beating a dead horse here.
It's
Let's
a
move on.
separate topic related to talking about term limits, because if there was a term limit for 3 years or 2 years or 4 years, then somebody else would have to step up to do the work.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I enjoy serving the IU. I have information only items 14A, B, and C, graduate study conference request and field trips.
Ms. Gaiman, I would like to pull out 14B.
That's information only. Would you like to discuss conference request? Absolutely. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
When I look at the request for the conferences, there's 2 staff members who will be attending an Infinite Campus, that's our student information system conference. And please give me the signal because I know we're talking about personnel.
No, you can talk about a conference. Yeah.
One member is an instructional coach, and at the end of this year, will that staff member still be working with Infinite Campus, or are we going to be building out something else in that staff member's responsibilities that going to this conference will benefit the district in the future by learning maybe some skill set or functionality about our student information system?
Sure. So speaking in terms of positions, the question you're asking is the instructional coach tasks, are they going to continue to be repurposed to Infinite Campus as an instructional coach in that capacity? Or will the instructional coaching, is that the change that we're seeing in that position? You're talking about a job description basically, right? Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't see a problem. We can discuss that. Our solicitor said that's fine. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying. Dr. Mann.
Part of that question will be answered based upon how we respond to the new position I posted. And certainly there is enormous value between now and minimum to the end of the year for that individual who's been, and again, we're talking about individuals and I'm very uncomfortable doing
Well,
so.
we're talking about
All right.
positions and staffing.
Well,
We'll
no, but we're
speak in
talking
terms of that.
about the specific roles and responsibilities of an individual, which gives me great discomfort in a public meeting. So I do believe that the district will achieve value for the positions that are being sent there. And to the extent that we need to talk about that in greater detail with any reference to any particular individual, I would very much be happy to respond to that, but in executive session.
That address your question, Ms. Torba?
That did, and I appreciate and respect. I didn't know if I was towing the line with that question.
Which is why we check in with our solicitor. So
Emily, can we go back to committees?
did I skip committees?
I
I
think we
did.
skipped
I
new business
apologize.
as
I
well.
went right for the letters to the nominee. I just skipped through when there wasn't a number. Committee reports. Yes, by all means, Mr. Carney.
The Education Committee will be meeting on Monday. Be talking about the chart that we just saw. The Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee met on February 18th. And I like the mix of people that were there as far as staff, administration, community, parents, and some of the board members. ACMC met February 13th, and we approved one submission. I had some other discussions. LCTI, we meet on Wednesday. And again, some of our intermediate students and CTE month. Congratulations.
Other committee reports? Policy Committee, what we just covered in a second reading is what the Policy Committee last addressed, and we have not met in the interim.
Can we go to new business? I think we skipped over that as well.
Yes, we did indeed. I just saw blanks and
Yeah,
no
no worries.
voting
No.
items, and I skipped yes.
So
We can move on.
I actually wanted to give a shout out to one. I appreciated the students who were here from the high school who were giving updates. Our junior high girls wrestling had a very successful year. Their coach, Coach McHale, was voted by his peers as Coach of the Year at the conclusion of the junior high girls district tournament, which was pretty awesome. 5 of our girls made it to finals, and they finished with a team score of 3 and third out of 13 schools. So that's great. So very successful. 22 girls total have wrestled this year in the junior high and varsity. Only one is graduating, so I think we're poised for success. And then just a new business. I actually had brought it up earlier, Dr. Mann. I'd like to have some feedback for the community to determine how clubs are selected at the high school level. Again, I think I don't know if this was an Infinite Campus issue. I gave a personal example that my junior was not able to get any clubs that he had selected. And he's not the only one who I've heard this from. I think it was done. Again, I was told that it was done in alphabetical order. I'm also being informed, and again, I don't know if this is accurate or not, so I'd like to hear it from administration that, there are many freshmen and sophomores who are getting clubs and locking it out for juniors and seniors. Clubs and other opportunities, I think, would likely be best served. And I have a freshman as well. So I think, again, my junior deserves a better opportunity at a club over my freshman, because it's very poignant and pertinent to college applications. So I would like to hear by next meeting, if you could, how that selection occurs, how you think it should occur in the future, and what actionable steps are being taken to potentially improve opportunities for our students.
Well, you might address it next time, but I was going to ask.
Hold your mic.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was going to ask how they did it in the past before they
Before
supposedly
Infinite
did it
Campus?
alphabetical.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
no,
that's
for
exactly the
clubs.
question that I think I just asked.
No,
Yeah.
like going
Yeah.
forward, like how it should
Yeah,
be.
absolutely.
But I was wondering
But-
how they did it in the past.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Let us come back with that response.
Thank you.
Anything else under new business? All right, I would like to turn it over. We do have some new business that our Solicitor Jessica Moyer is going to announce for us related to prior presentations, discussions we've had as a board. Ms. Moyer, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gaiman. I'm just reporting back to the board concerning public comment that happened at last month's meeting, where there were several community members who came and spoke concerning the pool board turning over management services to the YMCA. My office undertook reviewing all the various documents concerning the stakeholders, and we made the determination that the board had no obligation to take a vote as to whether they were in support of that occurring, i.e. the pool board turning over management to the YMCA.
All right, thank you. So not an issue that we need to address. Wonderful. And I guess that would be under other information, since we were done with new business. Because it's not really new, I meant under other. But Ms. Torba.
No, the only other is if you're looking for something fun to do Friday night or Saturday, Friday night at 7:00 or Saturday at 2 p.m., there's a 6th grade musical, Peter Pan Jr., hosted by our 6th graders at our middle school auditorium. I think tickets are online. Friday at 7 p.m., Saturday 2 o'clock. If you have nothing to do, and live entertainment.
Fantastic. Good to know.
But Melissa, I'm already having fun tonight.
I know this is live entertainment too, like the WWE.
That's good. All right. Anything else under other business? Thank you. Moving on to visitor comments. I do have 2 individuals who've signed in to speak. I have first Megan Hallman. You don't have to hold the button in the whole time. No, that's just board members get that special. You're good.
Did I do it right? Did I do it right?
Yes. Just lean in. You're
This
good.
is
Thanks.
Very intimidating. Hi, everybody. I'm Megan Hallman. I know several of you. I've had a bunch of your kids in class. I'm a community member. I was a Southern Lehigh parent, raised 5 of my own Southern Lehigh Spartans. And I am a teacher in the district. I've been teaching in Southern Lehigh. This is my 16th year. I teach in 6th grade at our intermediate school. I'm not going to take a lot of your time. I just wanted to get up here after this evening and being at the last meeting. I want to thank you, first of all, for your dedication to our district and to our students. I appreciate the time that you put in and the effort that you put in. I understand that there's a lot of strong feelings that come with this job. And I want to encourage all of you to consider reaching out to teachers and hearing what we have to say. Because we are here and we are happy to share and have you come in and see what we're doing. So when you talk about going deeper and you talk about wanting to know things, reach out and ask. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next person I have signed up to speak, and what I believe to be his last, is Chris Sikora. And please correct my pronunciation again. Sikora, did I get close? Please correct me. Sikora, thank you. I believe it was turned off when Ms. Holman walked away. So if you pull that button all the way towards you, and feel free to adjust the mic up to your level of your mouth and tap it, we'll know instantly. Yep, it's on. There you go.
All right. Good evening. I won't take much time. I wasn't at the last meeting, so I'll have to go back and review that. Sounds pretty interesting. I've been a community member in the Lehigh Valley for about 10 years. I moved here about 4 or 5 years ago, 5 years almost now, right? So I've been paying taxes for 5 years in the Southern Lehigh School District. And I have a student who's in second grade now. So it's his second year. We didn't do kindergarten here, admittedly. I'm witnessing a pretty dysfunctional school board, it seems like, this evening, right? Maybe not forever. I was here two meetings ago, and it seemed like it went halfway decent. I heard some good ideas from quote unquote both sides. Okay. Just do better. All right. Get along. That's my request as a parent and a taxpayer. Okay. That's all.
Thank you. That concludes what I see as visitor comment for the evening. I don't believe I've missed anyone. No, I just refreshed. I am then looking for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mr. Carney. Thank you, Ms. King, for the second. I believe we do have need of an executive session after this. I ask you to adjourn to, we'll take a bio break as a board, and we will reconvene.
I'm sorry, I can't attend an executive session without notice.
Okay. We will still have quorum, assuming we have enough board members to have that executive session. And we will take a bio break, and we will reconvene in our typical exec room, if that works. I assume it's still unlocked and we have access. Thank you.